Our story kicks off on a dark and rainy night. Atop a gruesome mountain of corpses, Feng stood strong, despite immense suffering, from a curse that accelerated his aging 100-fold, yet he had managed to conquer the ancient god's ruins. A woman, gripping a dagger, looked at him with admiration, calling him impressive, before she snatched the divine artifact, the Eye of Judgment, for herself. Feng, gravely injured and on the brink of death, turned to Zhao and demanded, "Why did you betray me?" Coldly, Zhao revealed the truth. He was nothing more than an adopted child, taken in by her parents. She had never considered him her brother, since they shared no blood. Then, a blond man named Song appeared, resting a hand on Zhao's shoulder, while clutching the artifact. He praised Feng for being useful, and smiled, saying that without him, they never would have obtained the Eye of Judgment. To drain Feng's remaining lifespan all at once, Song had embedded the soul-stealing blade into his body, a blade he had painstakingly acquired for this exact moment. He mockingly asked, "Do you like my farewell gift?" Feng had raised Zhao after their parents' death. He paid for her education, protected her when the game descended upon the world, and risked his life countless times for her sake. But now, seeing her betray him, he realized he had been utterly blind. Zhao spoke again, her voice dripping with disdain. "After our parents died, Feng, you had controlled my life, giving me orders, watching my every move. You had been useful back then, when Song and I needed protection. But now that we have the divine artifact, you are worthless." Song stepped forward to deliver the final, crushing blow, promising he would take good care of Zhao. Feng, filled with blazing rage, vowed to never forgive them. But before he could finish speaking, Song ended his life. In 2025, the god-forsaken game descended upon the world. Lifespan became the only currency. Dying cost you years, killing monsters granted you more. Players could sacrifice their lifespan to bring their incredible game abilities into the real world. The strong could effortlessly crush tanks with their bare hands, slice through airplanes with a single blade, and even endure nuclear blasts with nothing but their own bodies. The world plunged into chaos. Feng fought alongside Zhao through countless brutal battles, enduring every hardship. Together, they fiercely climbed the global rankings, eventually breaking into the top 100 powerhouses. After years of bloodshed and countless close calls, Feng finally conquered the ruins of an ancient god and earned the divine artifact, the Eye of Judgment. At last, he had the qualifications to stand at the very top. But the price of his hard-won success was betrayal by the only family he had left. Everything he had fought for became mere fuel for someone else's rise. All his struggles had meant nothing. If he had a second chance, he swore to fight only for himself. And then it happened. Feng opened his eyes, finding himself in his old room. He sat up quickly. This was the real world he remembered. He remembered dying, so why was he here? He grabbed his phone. The date read, 2025. Looking out the window, he saw the city, skyline, beautiful and untouched. It was the same day the game had first descended. Somehow, he had returned to the past, reborn 9 years earlier. The very next morning, Xiao kicked open his door. Seeing Feng calmly drinking coffee, she exploded with anger, asking why he hadn't answered her calls. She kicked over the trash can and began yelling. Feng remembered this day clearly. The day they fought over Song. Posters of Song still hung on the wall. Before the game's descent, Song had been a major underground idol. Xiao had been absolutely obsessed with him. But beneath the flashy exterior, Song was a con artist who used his fans for money. And worse, using young girls however he wanted. Feng had always tried to protect Xiao from that scumbag, and for that, he was accused of trying to control her life. Pointing at him, Xiao screamed that it was his time's fault. Song lost first place that month. She demanded Time's money to help Song reclaim his rank, threatening to unleash her Fury Times if he didn't comply. Feng responded Times without a flicker of hesitation asterisk. Within Time's icy, stone-cold Time's expression, he slapped her hard, a resounding crack across her face asterisk. She collapsed to the floor asterisk, blood trickling from her nose, her eyes widened in sheer shock asterisk. This time, he'd truly struck her. Staring her down, Feng warned her not to dare test his patience asterisk. If she kept yapping asterisk, he'd shatter her jaw asterisk. He flung a credit card asterisk past her head asterisk, declaring it was the money left behind by their parents. All these years, no matter how dire things got, He had never used a times single cent asterisk. Out of respect for them, he made one thing times crystal clear asterisk. From that day forward, he had times no sister asterisk. Xiao times burst into anguished tears asterisk. Feng turned away, asterisk seething asterisk. In his past life, he'd given up times, countless chances times to protect her. Asterisk. Rare dungeon items asterisk. Asterisk secret class opportunities times he'd passed them all up. Asterisk. No more. Asterisk. He took out some sleeping pills, washed them down with water, and times collapsed onto the bed asterisk. Without that times crippling burden asterisk, dragging him down. This time, he would times rise asterisk. He would use his times, foresight times and climb, to the times absolute top asterisk. Xiao could survive on her own. As for Song, Feng would times take his head personally, asterisk. Feng drifted into sleep, and found himself, once more within the times mysterious hall of choices asterisk. The sight stirred a strange wave of nostalgia in him. The first time he'd stood here, he'd been times paralyzed by nerves asterisk. Taking, asterisk, hours, times to make his decision before finally stepping out. But things were times decidedly different times now. Time mattered, and he wasn't here to times dally or hesitate asterisk. In his past life, he'd chosen the times warrior class asterisk. Strong, durable, asterisk and times perfect for someone who had to protect another. But that reason times no longer existed asterisk. With no sister to shield, he needed times agility asterisk, asterisk precision, and blistering speed asterisk. So, without a second thought, he selected the times assassin class asterisk. Just then, and times unforeseen and unexpected asterisk. Asterisk system message popped up asterisk. Divine artifact. Asterisk. I have judgment times successfully bound. A times jolt of shock times ran through him. The artifact activated, on its own. And with it, came a times powerful, passive ability, asterisk. Upon entering the times forsaken game asterisk, he would automatically receive the times highest ranked asterisk, profession and talent corresponding to his chosen path. Feng was utterly stunned, finally grasping how the artifact truly worked. As long as it acknowledged a master, no one else could use it, even if stolen. Perhaps this was the true reason for his rebirth. Darkness surged into him, transforming his very body. His hair bleached to a ghostly white, and his figure dissolved into pure shadow. He wasn't just an assassin. He had unlocked Shadow, a rare, high-tier hidden class. A complete departure from his past warrior role. The sheer power flooding through him was overwhelming. He recalled how incredibly rare it was to awaken a hidden version of a class. Yet, the Eye of Judgments. Authority had made it an absolute certainty. Another system message swiftly confirmed it. The authority of judgment was a primordial force, older than any law and beyond divine rule. While he couldn't actively wield this authority without first acquiring divinity, its passive effect was already fully active. This revelation left him utterly speechless. In his previous life, it wasn't until 7 years after the game's arrival that a powerful player broke through the Forsaken Realm and reached the Realm of Order. Only then did humanity learn of the concept of order. Yet, even then, no one ever obtained the true power of order. And now, at the very beginning, Feng had already surpassed it. Now, his objective had become crystal clear. Survive the Forsaken Realm, obtain divinity, and activate the authority of judgment. With his class selection finalized, the system prompted him to choose a username. He hesitated, then typed in Shadow, a reflection of what he had become. He was transported into the Forsaken Realm, a broken, desolate land filled with ferocious beasts, ready to devour his very lifespan. This was the battlefield. Kill to earn tradable life, die, and lose half of your remaining time. Feng materialized in Shelltown, a temporary sanctuary. No monsters prowled within its borders, and players were safe from each other here. From the accelerated lifespan, decay was reduced to normal within its boundaries. One by one, more players began to arrive, yanked into the game while sleeping, working, or simply unaware. Their gazes slowly honed in on Fang. Something about him was utterly different. His appearance, even the air around him. Catching sight of the twin daggers at his waist, some quickly deduced he was an assassin, but his presence felt unlike anything they'd ever seen. Fang knew this window was brief. Soon, global elites would begin to emerge. Politicians, military leaders, and celebrities. Each would wield their influence to reshape this new world. If he wanted to stand tall, above them, he had no time to waste. A sudden commotion broke out as 3 men and an archer returned to town, visibly shaken. Their faces were ashen, their voices strained. They'd just returned from a battle, lucky to be alive. Apparently, they'd barely scratched a level 1 crawler. Even together, they'd only managed to reduce the monster's health to a mere third before getting wiped out. With their deaths, half their precious lifespan was gone. They turned to the archer, a girl named Lizzie, and asked what to do next. Fang watched quietly. Judging by her equipment, Lizzie had a hidden class too. She seemed to notice him and offered a polite smile, suggesting they form a team. She said her group had already experienced defeat and could offer valuable insight. Fang declined. He had no interest in teaming up with players who had already failed once. The others scoffed, accusing him of pretending to be some kind of elite. According to them, even 5 people couldn't defeat that low-tier monster. What chance did he have solo? Lizzie quickly checked the system and learned his in-game name, Shadow. As Fang walked past them toward the town gates, Lizzie decided to follow at a distance. She was curious. Maybe she could learn something about monster behavior, or maybe just watch him crash and burn. The land, forsaken by the gods, was a grim and perilous place. Its very atmosphere instilled a deep unease. Lizzie and her companions had begun tailing Fang, quietly. She wasn't sure why she'd been dragged into this world, but years of experience in online gaming had taught her one thing: teamwork drastically boosted their survival odds. So, almost instinctively, she gathered a party. However, the moment they stepped beyond the town's safety, reality hit them like a truck. The very first monster they encountered wiped them out effortlessly. Lizzie then understood. This creature wasn't something level 1 players were meant to face. Her teammates, still reeling from their loss, got even more agitated when they spotted Feng's gear. While their group's assassin brandished only a standard dagger, Feng, however, wielded a much shorter blade. Even more baffling was Feng's speed. He moved with an impossible swiftness. At their current stage, their own assassin couldn't hide his jealousy. By all rights, he times should have had the highest agility, yet Feng easily outpaced him. On top of that, Feng's outfit was unlike anything they'd ever seen so far. Everything about him just felt off, as if he were on an entirely different playing field. That's what convinced Lizzie to keep watching. He might just reveal something crucial. The moment Feng's eyes flickered their way, Lizzie tensed up and quickly ducked out of sight, unsure if he had noticed their presence. But moments later, he simply disappeared. No sound, no trace, just gone. Bewildered, Lizzie and her teammates scanned the area. Their resident assassin was the first to realize Feng had employed a stealth skill, probably a common ability that temporarily made him invisible. This confirmed one thing for them: Feng was now in hiding and probably wouldn't be back anytime soon. Given the turn of events, Lizzie decided a tactical retreat was best for now. Heading out again so quickly would be reckless, especially after already suffering such a defeat. Their lifespans were halved. They returned to Shell Town, desperate for ways to improve, perhaps uncovering NPCs with hidden quests or treasure troves that might give them a crucial advantage. Meanwhile, Feng traversed the world thanks to his shadow sneak ability, unique to his class. This granted him temporary invisibility, only breaking if he initiated an attack. His first strike, launched right after exiting stealth, inflicted increased damage, and then some. Plus, Shadow's class-specific passive, Stealth Mastery, not only doubled his concealment time but also boosted his stealth level, making detection nearly impossible, even for monsters. Fang found it laughable that Lizzie's group thought they'd find real growth in the starter town. It was just a haven, a holding area for players to adapt. The outside world was merciless. Weaklings weren't challengers here, they were nothing but fodder. A few moments later, the stealth effect wore off. While the duration wasn't long, its cooldown had already begun ticking the moment it was activated. It wouldn't be long before he could vanish again. A window popped up, revealing Feng's current status. Codename: Shadow. Class: Shadow. Lifespan: 75 years non-tradable, 0 years tradable. Attributes: Strength: 13. Constitution: 13. Agility: 18. Spirit: 15. Every player started with a base of 10 points in each stat, with bonus allocations based on their chosen class. In his previous life as a warrior, he'd only received minor increases in strength and constitution, just 3 points each, but now, the Shadow class had granted buffs across the board, with a remarkable +8 to agility. On top of that, he still had 5 unallocated points. Most newcomers dumped their points into strength or spirit to boost offensive power, but Feng knew better. That approach was suicide in the early stages. Monsters always hit harder than players could. The key was not to take damage at all. Without hesitation, he added all 5 points to agility, raising it to 23. Speed was survival. His senses suddenly sharpened. There was movement behind a nearby tree. A crawler, level 1, normal grade. But something was different about it. It was in the middle of evolution. Fang narrowed his eyes. That same crawler must have been the one that slaughtered Lizzie's group. Though injured, it was still dangerous. The moment it detected his presence, it lunged. Fang dodged with a quick leap. He understood the rules of this twisted game. When monsters devoured players, they absorbed their very lifespan. Consume enough, and they could even evolve. Without a moment's hesitation, Fang activated Shadow Sneak, drew his trusty short blade, and instantly vanished. Just as the massive crawler lunged again, the creature hesitated, scanning frantically but finding nothing. And then, from high above, Fang reappeared midair, striking down with chilling precision. Executing a flawless stealth break attack, the blade plunged straight into the crawler's head, dealing a staggering 174 points of damage, more than enough to kill it instantly. He immediately earned 10 experience points. He hadn't expected such a ridiculously clean kill, but the precise strike location, right at the nape, had triggered a critical hit. A system prompt then flashed. The skill Backstab was activated, doubling damage if the attack originated from outside the enemy's field of vision. The stealth bonus, stealth break, multiplier, and backstab effect had all stacked up, creating truly devastating force. Feng stared down at the crawler's lifeless corpse. He remembered struggling for dear life as a warrior, barely managing 40 damage even with a critical hit. It used to take an eternity to kill, even a single crawler, and he'd almost died every time. Now, one strike, one kill. Unbelievable. A glowing orb then dropped from the dead monster. It was lifespan. Clenching his fist, Feng absorbed it. He gained 3 days of valuable tradable lifespan, plus 54 years and 155 days of non-tradable lifespan. Considering 5 people had died, each likely losing 20 to 30 years, the crawler must have absorbed over 100 years total. Yet, Feng had only recovered a small portion. Still, it was a promising start. Then, quite unexpectedly, a new prompt appeared. The Eye of Judgment activated once more. A new talent was bestowed. Infinite Evolution. By slaying monsters solo, Feng gained the rare opportunity to earn evolution points. An exclusive system tied directly to his unique ability. Every 24 hours, 5 evolution points were granted passively, and eliminating a boss-class enemy solo guaranteed additional points. At present, he had 5 available. With the power of infinite evolution now at his fingertips, he could now truly enhance his skills. This was utterly unthinkable in his previous life. Back then, no matter how rare the loot, or skill book, dropped by monsters, its quality remained rigidly fixed. Nothing could surpass its inherent tier. But now, he possessed an incredible force that transcended the system's natural laws, a power beyond all structure and balance. Curious to test this newfound power's potential, Feng spent 4 evolution points to enhance Shadow, Sneak, and Backstab. The results were immediate. Shadow Sneak advanced from normal to bronze quality, increasing its duration from 12 to 16 seconds. The bonus, damage from breaking stealth, went up from 60% to 90%, and its cooldown dropped by 2 seconds. Backstab, meanwhile, rose from inferior to normal grade, boosting its damage by a solid 5%. With these enhancements and stealth mastery, Shadow Sneak now lasted an astonishing 32 seconds. That meant he could practically maintain invisibility indefinitely, simply waiting for the cooldown between activations. If he'd had these upgrades earlier, he might have eliminated that crawler, even at full health, with a single blow. Just then, a boy accompanied by a young woman wandered nearby, loudly boasting that this game wasn't as difficult as people claimed. After all, even someone as scrawny as Feng had managed to take down a monster solo. The woman praised Feng's performance, joking that he looked strong enough to fend off 10 enemies at once. Encouraged, the boy grinned and promised to protect her. Feng, however, noticed something they didn't. There was a creature lurking among the branches. The boy turned to Feng and casually asked if he wanted to team up. But Feng, sensing imminent danger, activated Shadow Sneak without a word and vanished. The boy assumed that Feng had been intimidated by his muscular build, but his moment of arrogance was cut short when a monstrous spider descended from the trees. Panic instantly set in. This wasn't an ordinary enemy. It was the Nurturer, a bronze-grade boss monster at level 1, known for its swarm of minions and overwhelming power. It was a notorious beginner boss, amassing a massive 16 OP points, an overwhelming amount for any rookie. As the terrifying creature savagely attacked, claiming the lives of the boy and girl, in an instant, Feng lurked in the shadows, carefully assessing the situation. With the nurturer distracted and feeding, Feng struck, unleashing a devastating stealth break strike. Feng plunged his short blade deep into the spider's eye. Enraged, the creature retaliated furiously, but Feng's lightning-fast reflexes and exceptional agility allowed him to deftly evade the counterattack. Even so, he took 9 damage in the process. His brutal assault had inflicted a staggering 338 damage, far more than he had expected. He knew a direct hit from the boss would have killed him on the spot. Impressed by the sheer potency of his new abilities, Feng observed the escalating chaos unfolding. The enraged nurturer was furiously smashing trees, thrashing wildly to flush out its unseen attacker. Even its smaller spiders were now on high alert, making any direct approach far too dangerous. Seizing a sudden opportunity, Feng hurled a rock at the spider's abdomen. It connected flawlessly, inflicting another 299 points of damage. He launched a second rock, confirming his theory. The true power came not from the rock, but from the ambush strike, backstab, and weak point attack skills activating all at once. As long as his shadow sneak skill was off cooldown, he could endlessly repeat this process. Wait, disappear, strike, and vanish again. At the very moment shadow sneak was ready, Feng hurled another rock, this time inflicting 279 damage. He vanished back into the shadows, once more, his simple strategy proving absolutely devastating. Remaining hidden, silent, and methodical, Feng continued this relentless routine until the final blow landed. Meanwhile, back in Shelltown, the system's leaderboard updated. A brand new name soared to the top. The mysterious player, known only as Shadow, had just vanquished the bronze-grade boss Nurturer, making him the first player to reach level 2 and immediately seizing the top spot. But players throughout the town were left utterly stunned. Many hadn't even managed to deal with common monsters yet. Many just assumed it was a bug or a system glitch. Lizzie and her party stared, utterly stunned. They watched the announcement pop up in disbelief. They hadn't even survived their very first battle, yet the person they'd been following had already taken down a boss-class enemy. It just felt completely impossible. Meanwhile, the 2 players who'd fallen to the spider respawned back in Shelltown. Their faces went pale as they read the notification. They then realized that the mysterious Shadow was the same boy they'd mocked in the forest. Back at the battle site, the system declared Feng's victory. He'd earned 300 experience points and received 2 evolution points. Additionally, the Shelltown reputation board unlocked, granting him 1 reputation point. Feng absorbed the lifespan released by the defeated spider. As the giant creature died, the swarm of smaller spiders scattered. He cursed it under his breath. Had he eliminated them first, he could have gained even more experience. Still, the rewards were remarkable. He acquired 46 units of tradable lifespan, a skill book called Greedy Hand of Bronze Tier, and a corrosive dagger that inflicted 35 damage and added +4 to agility. After learning Greedy Hand, Feng gained a new tool in his arsenal, a passive ability that gave a 20% chance to extract extra loot from defeated enemies. This was a top-tier skill for loot-based progression. Feng hadn't expected a beginner boss to drop such a rare utility. In the late stages of the game, this ability was invaluable. In his past life, there'd been a player from the God Slayer Guild who wasn't even strong in battle, but thanks to times this exact skill, he had become a vital asset. People practically lined up just to party with him. He even had a personal escort team just to protect him. Now Feng understood the real potential. With his infinite evolution talent, he could enhance Greedy Hand too, improving its activation rate, increasing the quantity and quality of the loot. This wasn't just a strong start, it was the beginning of a one-man revolution. The following morning, on their way to school, Xiao's friend brought up the idea of calling Feng. Trying to mend fences, her friend reminded Xiao that they'd blown off their test the day before, all to secretly cheer on Song. She was certain Feng must be furious. Zhao, however, flat out refused. She insisted she'd done nothing wrong. In fact, she blamed Feng for almost making them late. In her eyes, it was Feng who owed her times the apology. Her friend tried to talk some sense into her, pointing out how kindly Feng had always treated her, and even asked about the injury on her face. But Zhao stayed stubborn, claiming Feng always meddled in things that weren't his business. She quickly brushed off the question about her face with a lie, claiming she'd simply tripped and fallen. As they finally reached school, they noticed a huge crowd of students gathered outside a classroom. Curiosity piqued. Xiao's friend pushed her way through the mob and stepped inside, only to find Zhang's body slowly turning transparent. One of his classmates explained that just moments ago, Zhang had said he was going to take a nap, and when they turned around, he was already in this ghostly state. And this wasn't an isolated event. Similar cases were popping up online, with people from all over the world, experiencing the exact same thing. Experts warned that falling asleep could trigger a semi-transparent, ghost-like condition, and no one knew the cause. Alarmed, Xiao's friend immediately called her parents to warn them and urged Xiao to contact her brother too, just to be safe. Xiao, however, refused again, saying she'd rather see him dead than ever speak to him. Meanwhile, Feng had just upgraded his skill, Greedy Hand, from bronze to gold quality. The chance of gaining an extra item while looting had skyrocketed from 20% to 70%. By mastering this skill, Feng earned 2 evolution points. He clenched his fist and activated the skill, gaining not only those 2 points, but also a whopping 46 days of tradable lifespan. Pleased with the incredible reward, he noted that leveling Greedy Hand up to Tier 3 would require 3 points, and once he reached that level, he'd snag a guaranteed 100% chance for extra loot. With every single kill, he was certain the world's governments had already caught wind of the situation, and more players would soon flood into the game. He needed to move faster. Feng equipped a bronze-grade corrosive dagger, boosting his attack by 35 points and agility by 4. He activated Shadow Stealth to avoid monster detection, knowing it wouldn't be long before people discovered that skills and gear from the game could be brought into the real world, a revelation that would likely throw everything into absolute chaos. To extract skills and equipment, 2 conditions had to be met: reaching level 10 and possessing enough tradable lifespan. Battling weak monsters was inefficient, so Feng set his sights on stronger enemies. And while exploring, he heard the sounds of combat. Peering from a cliff, he spotted several players engaged in a fight with a level 2 sprint predator, a bronze tier boss. It was a great opportunity. The creature lunged, but the attack was blocked by a player with a mace and shield. Wang Mang. Feng hadn't expected to run into him here. The rumors turned out to be true. When Wang Mang first joined the Forsaken game, he had formed a full squad of hidden class users. All 6 members of his party possessed secret professions. Wang Mang used Holy Barrier, conjuring a golden shield that repelled the monster. His hidden class, Holy Shield Warrior, gave him twice the base stats of a regular warrior and came with a passive invincibility trait. As the beast was stalled, the mage in the group unleashed a fireball that struck its arm. Her hidden mage class, Prophet, doubled her magical damage and included a built-in fireball skill. The archer of the group had the hidden class Sharpshooter, giving her double the standard archer stats and access to a rapid-fire ability. The team's priest held the Oracle Priest class, offering him twice the healing capacity and a potent group heal. Both the mage and archer unleashed their attacks, but the monster dodged effortlessly, then retaliated against Wang Mang, forcing him back. The archer started to panic, realizing their long-range attacks were far too slow for this quick opponent. As the priest healed Wang Mang, he decided their best strategy was to steadily chip away at the monster's HP, relying on the healer's support. Fang thought Wang Mang was being far too hopeful. He knew they were overlooking one critical fact: they were in the wild, and drawn-out battles would attract other monsters. Right on cue, 2 more creatures emerged from behind Wang Mang. Fang immediately recognized the newcomers. They were corruptors, standard level 2 monsters, their bodies coated in thick, dark brown sludge. These creatures specialized in long-range attacks. One of the team's swordsmen rushed in to engage them. He had a hidden class that Feng hadn't encountered before. His strike landed, inflicting 33 points of damage, but he quickly realized the creatures had unusually high defense. In retaliation, one of the corruptors spewed a glob of mud at him. The skill, Ground Bind, significantly reduced his movement speed. Meanwhile, the second corruptor turned its attention to the mage, who had no choice but to flee, tears streaming down her face in panic. But before the monster could close the distance, Feng burst in, appearing as if from nowhere, and in a flash, decapitated the beast, dealing 441 points of damage. The sudden, brutal blow left everyone speechless. The mage froze, confused about who had come to her rescue, and unsure whether they had unexpected backup. The swordsman struggled back to his feet, using his blade for support, stunned to witness someone take down a level 2 corruptor in one hit, especially considering how it took their entire team 10 seconds to take down a single level 1 enemy. The remaining corruptor prepared another attack, but once again, Feng struck like lightning, cleanly severing its head. The swordsman, terrified, asked Li if she'd seen who did it. She was visibly rattled, admitting she hadn't caught a glimpse. Wang Mang urged them to stay focused. Deep down, he hoped Feng was on their side. Now, only the sprint predator remained. From a tree branch above, Feng silently watched. For eliminating the two corruptors, he received 40 experience points, 1 evolution point, a common quality skill book titled Venom Dart, and 8 days of tradable lifespan. Without delay, Feng upgraded Venom Dart, a perfect poison-based, mid-range attack. Upon evolving, the skill rose to level 2, and its quality upgraded from common to silver. It allowed him to launch a poisoned dart with a max range of 14 meters, dealing 120 points of attack damage on impact. It applied the Venom status effect, which dealt 50% of the original damage per second over 5 seconds. The effect couldn't stack and had a cooldown of just 5 seconds. The monster lunged again. Wang Mang managed to block the strike with his shield, but the creature drove a sharp limb into his abdomen. His shield and mace fell to the ground, and the monster used the opportunity to stab him again, causing excruciating pain. The archer began trembling, and the priest panicked, knowing his healing abilities couldn't keep up with the damage being dealt. Realizing the severity of the situation, Wang Mang told the others to retreat. Just then, Feng fired a dart straight into the predator's skull. The attack dealt a massive 845 points of damage, slicing the boss's HP in half. The mage and archer stood frozen, astonished. The boss staggered, and venom oozed from its wounds. Eventually, it collapsed, suffering an additional 324 points of damage from the poison effect, which triggered repeatedly. Since Feng had dealt over 90% of the total damage, all the loot was his. For defeating the sprint predator, Feng earned 600 experience points, reaching level 3. He also received 2 evolution points and 55 days of tradable lifespan. He hadn't anticipated that the poison's damage, his class's passive ability, would soon activate. Thanks to stealth, he could now remain hidden, endlessly flinging darts. At this point, nothing in the early or mid game could ever pose a threat to him. Loot instantly materialized beside the fallen boss. Wang Mang was utterly stunned by the sheer damage output he had just witnessed. Mere seconds later, the loot vanished from sight. He got up, sincerely thanking Feng for his intervention. But Feng, ever cold and direct, told them never to trust anyone in the wildlands so easily, leaving the team visibly shaken. Wang Mang nodded, grateful for both the help and the harsh warning, and told the others not to disturb Feng as he collected his spoils. He also added that if Feng ever needed assistance, he was welcome to come find him. While looting, Feng made a mental note. Wang Mang seemed reliable, and more importantly, he had backing from Daxia's government, which possessed substantial resources. Feng pondered, finding a steady outlet to sell his unused loot. Using Greedy Hand, he earned 3 more evolution points and 55 additional days of tradable lifespan. Among the loot, he acquired a pair of sprint predator leather greaves of bronze quality. Equipping them instantly boosted his physical defense by 9 points, all elemental resistance by 5, and reduced his cooldowns by 15%. It had been an incredible haul. He still had plenty of class-specific gear and skill books, and once his inventory was full, he made his way back to town to trade it all in for lifespan. His eyes sparkled with fierce determination. This time, his growth rate was 100-fold faster than in his previous life. Not too far from where Feng had been fighting, another group of players was struggling against an unrelenting onslaught of monsters. As more enemies poured in, they quickly realized they were outmatched and attempted to retreat. But before they could escape, a much larger beast violently emerged. In an instant, it lashed out with razor-sharp vines, cutting down the entire team. The players instantly respawned back in town, visibly frustrated. Monsters always swarmed, and if injured, they'd flee before anyone could finish them. Rumor had it that only reaching level 3 would let players log out, but that goal felt more unreachable by the minute. Some players suggested increasing party sizes, arguing that teams of 3 weren't enough, and that groups of 6 or 10 might stand a better chance. But others disagreed. One player mentioned witnessing a group of 10 get completely wiped out, and pointed out that larger gatherings risked triggering boss spawns. Recently, a party of 40 had stumbled upon a curse master, and over 30 of them had been instantly wiped out by a single attack. Elsewhere, Lizzie and her team had also returned to town after yet another failed attempt. The situation was dire. Without reaching level 3, there was no way to escape. Everyone had ended up inside the game after falling asleep, meaning only their consciousness was here. If they couldn't log out, their physical bodies would eventually starve. Lizzie was beside herself with frustration, unable to understand why the game was so brutally hard. One of her teammates began panicking. They had already died 3 times, and their non-tradable lifespan had dropped below 10 years. At this rate, they were facing death in both the game and reality. Even if the connection between the two wasn't fully understood, Lizzie knew they couldn't afford another death. Then she noticed something strange. Shadow, the top-ranked player, was already level 3. Her mind raced. He must have found some kind of loophole or strategy. Whatever it was, they needed him. Desperation turned into determination as she clenched her fists and gave her team a clear order. Spread the word. They needed to convince Shadow to help them reach level 3. She vowed to offer him 10 million in cash once they made it back to the real world. Her teammates were stunned, but Lizzie was convinced. There was no way someone would turn down that kind of money. Back in the forest, Fang had just finished off a level 2 polluter. He racked up 20 experience points and 1 evolution point after absorbing the monster's tradable lifespan. He decided it was time to invest the 5 evolution points he'd saved up. He immediately upgraded his greedy hand, boosting it from platinum to emerald quality. The results were absolutely staggering. The extra loot chance now stood at 160%, and, get this, there was even a 20% chance that the bonus item would be of a higher tier. Feng was utterly in awe. With further evolution, the odds could hit 200%, or even more. This skill was quickly becoming ridiculously overpowered. As rain poured down, something unusual caught his eye. It was none other than the Curse Master, the very same boss that had obliterated the team of 40. The bronze tier boss was roaming through the forest, absorbing life force, preparing to evolve into silver tier. Feng wasn't surprised. Its immense power explained the massacre. However, his inventory was already full. Killing the boss now would be pointless, since he wouldn't be able to claim the loot. So, he strategically marked the boss's location on his map, planning to return once he'd cleared out some space. Meanwhile, news had spread like wildfire. Through the town, someone was offering a staggering 10 million for Shadow, the mysterious top player, to help them power level. With people dying and losing lifespan every single day, the wealthy were already scrambling to find a way out. The poor, they were being left far behind. Amid the growing chatter, Feng strolled into town, turning heads instantly. Without saying a word, he opened the market stall function through the system. A notification blared across the entire area, announcing that equipment and skill books would be on sale. For the next 10 minutes, gasps echoed through the crowd. Feng was not only equipped with 2 pieces of bronze tier gear, but he was selling 2 more. People could barely believe their eyes. Someone among them had already slain a bronze tier boss. One of the players nearby questioned why Feng's face was hidden, and someone quickly explained that he had activated the face concealment feature, which synced his in-game look with his real-world one. This meant Feng chose to remain anonymous. A mage then wandered up to his stall. Her eyes lingered curiously on one of the items, before she asked about the icicle spell's price. Feng told her it would cost 100 days of tradable lifespan. She was Grey Rose, currently ranked 11th in Shelltown, also using face concealment. To her, the price seemed utterly excessive, so she tried to negotiate, but Feng was firm. He stated that the spell was a basic one that significantly boosted early game grinding for mages, and 100 days was already more than fair. She then asked if she could pay in real currency, but Feng flat out refused, advising her that if she had money to spend, she should buy tradable lifespan and return with that. He wasn't planning to sell it to anyone else in the meantime, unless they paid more. She paused to think, then reached out to her teammates through their group channel. They had managed to reach level 2 rapidly under her guidance, so no one objected. With the icicle spell, they'd have an even better chance of making it to level 3, which was what truly mattered. She told them to send her their tradable lifespan, promising to compensate them with real cash once they escaped. She collected the 100 days and handed it over. Feng accepted the payment, thinking that if they were all level 2 already, they must have cleared dozens of crawlers by now, meaning their overall lifespan reserves were probably far higher. With the deal done, Feng's tradable lifespan jumped from 268 days to 368. That's when Lizzie dramatically arrived. She was relieved to have finally found Shadow. Smiling confidently, she made him a proposal. If he helped her get to level 3, she'd give him 10 million in cash once they were back in the real world. The nearby players were absolutely stunned. Lizzie wasn't just anyone. In Feng's previous life, she'd been the leader of a major criminal group that was later destroyed by the state. She claimed her father was the head of Dujiang Industries, and when Feng didn't look convinced, she urged him to look her up. It was well known that she often used money to lure players into selling their lifespan, only to later abduct them for grueling forced labor. Those who resisted were never heard from again. Fang coldly turned her down. To him, Lizzie was nothing but trash. Still, she persisted, trying to win him over. She claimed that while Shadow might be strong here, no one truly knew the game's rules yet. Again, she tried to tempt him, promising luxury cars, houses, women, whatever he desired. But Fang didn't budge. He sharply told her to stop interfering with his business, making it perfectly clear that money no longer held any value here. Only tradable lifespan would matter from now on. Lizzie snapped back, declaring that if this were reality, she would have taught him a lesson by now. That's when Feng, his tone icy, warned her. If she spoke again, he would kill her until her lifespan hit 0. The threat was so sharp, it sent a palpable chill through the air. Lizzie and her team, visibly shaken, didn't wait around, they fled. A short while later, Feng sold off the last item from his stall, the bronze tier gleam robe of tier. With that, his tradable lifespan increased to 546 days. Now that everything had been sold, he knew it was time to deal with the Curse Master. He activated stealth and vanished from sight. No one in the town realized it yet, but tradable lifespan could eventually be used to extract skills into the real world. Soon, the real world would descend into chaos, just like the game, and all the old systems, money, power, social status, would become meaningless. In the end, only times personal strength would matter. Lizzie and her team had finally come to a stop, gasping for breath after their hasty retreat. She was still furious, grinding her teeth as she told the others how Shadow not only refused her offer, but even threatened to kill her. Her pride severely bruised, she muttered a vow to find him in the real world and make him pay. While she stood seething in anger, a man named Mao approached from nearby. He introduced himself as a level 2 player and claimed he had a few special methods to speed up leveling. Without wasting time, he asked if he could take the offer Shadow had rejected. He wanted the 10 million, in exchange for helping them reach level 3. Suspicious, Lizzie pressed. What methods are you even talking about? Mao smirked, then declared that normally, he'd never share his secrets with anyone else. But he was willing to make an exception just this once. According to him, the ultimate key to leveling up fast was dumping all attribute points into agility right away. Doing so, he explained, made it possible to outrun most enemies and dodge damage while still landing powerful strikes. Lizzie was genuinely taken aback. She'd been pouring all her points into strength, assuming brute force was the only way to survive. Skeptical, she agreed to let Mao join them, but insisted on paying only 5 million gold instead of 10, since he clearly wasn't on Shadow's level. Mao didn't argue. Instead, he pointed out that Shadow may have been incredibly powerful, but turning down that much money was still bizarre. Meanwhile, Feng had returned to the exact spot he'd marked earlier. Remaining in stealth, he observed the scene. The boss, monster, now shrouded in an even thicker mist, had already advanced to silver rank. It was still absorbing energy, relentlessly climbing toward gold. Feng wasn't about to wait 7 or 8 agonizing hours for its evolution to finish. He quietly activated his venom dart and launched a swift, surprise hit, dealing a massive 659 damage from the bonus strike. While he was still cloaked in stealth, the poison quickly followed up, ticking at 219 damage per second. Without losing a beat, he dashed forward, using his shadow sneak ability. He was well aware that silver-tier bosses had double or triple the health of their bronze counterparts. Suddenly, the monster began drawing in energy, its hands swelling with dark, arcane light as it prepared a large-scale attack. Feng realized this one specialized entirely in magic and could unleash devastating area of effect spells. After firing off another venom dart, he pulled back just in time to avoid being caught in the blast zone. Hidden and unharmed, he reminded himself that with his current gear and limited health pool, taking a direct hit would mean certain death. The boss began gathering energy again for another wide-range assault. But Feng remained patient, slowly weaving. Circling the battlefield, he meticulously counted down the seconds on his skill cooldowns. His most vital skill, Hidden Shadow, wasn't quite ready yet. He just needed to wait for the boss to make a fatal mistake. Then, finally, the creature faltered, distracted for merely a second. That was all the opening he needed. With zero hesitation, Feng lunged forward and fired another venom dart. The shot hit its mark, and poison once again started gnawing away at the monster's very life force. Seeing its health plummet, the boss panicked, desperately trying to escape. But Feng wasn't about to let that happen. Not a chance. Keeping close, his eyes sharp, and movements precise, he waited for that absolute final opening. In a flash, he reappeared directly on top of the monster's head, slamming it down with brutal, decisive force. The system chimed in immediately. He'd successfully killed the silver-ranked boss. Lines of notifications instantly flashed before him, confirming he'd gained a whopping 1,800 experience points. Enough to push him from level 3 straight to level 5. On top of that, he earned 4 evolution points and a hefty bonus of 124 days of tradable lifespan. Feng let out a small, satisfied laugh, amazed at the sheer rewards a single boss could offer. As the monster's body dissolved into loot, he activated his upgraded greedy hand skill, and with a shimmer in the air, the system confirmed that all the items had been collected. The haul was far better than Feng had ever anticipated. Along with the evolution points and lifespan, from defeating the silver boss, he had just received in times additional, times 4 points, and another 124 days of tradable lifespan. It was essentially double the reward, and this unexpected windfall brought a huge grin to his face. 2 major bonuses in 1 kill, he certainly couldn't complain. Doing the math, that single battle had given him a grand total of 12 evolution points, and a staggering 372 days of lifespan that he could actually trade. While he was still processing this incredibly generous outcome, another notification popped up. Apparently, Greedy Hand's secondary effect had activated, upgrading one of the looted items from silver to gold. Grade. Feng raised an eyebrow, genuinely impressed. So, that's why Greedy Hand was rated a Jade tier ability. It wasn't just about snagging extra loot, either, but boosting its quality was key. His attention snapped back to the battlefield. Scattered across the forest floor were 7 or 8 glowing equipment drops, each shimmering with its own rarity. But a fresh problem immediately surfaced. His inventory only had room for 10 more items. If he had to sprint back to town, every single time he downed a boss, it would be an enormous waste of precious time. A spatial ring, or any kind of portable storage solution, would have solved this instantly. He made a mental note to prioritize finding one next. Just as he moved to inspect a particularly shiny piece of gear, the scene abruptly cut away. Back in Shelltown, a flicker of light announced the arrival of the mage from Wang Mang's squad. Relief was clearly etched onto her face. She'd made it back, all thanks to Wang Mang's leadership. One by one, the rest of the team appeared beside her. They voiced their gratitude, acknowledging that without him, they wouldn't have reached level 3, let alone survive the journey back. But Wang Mang downplayed the compliments, insisting their success was the result of their collective effort, not solely his guidance. Still, the mage seemed troubled by something. She let out a small sigh, admitting she regretted not adding Feng as a friend back in the forest. Maybe it was the mud I was covered in, she joked. Her teammates chuckled. One of them gave her a wink and said that now, cleaned up, and in her upgraded gear, she'd probably make a better impression next time. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by a town-wide announcement. The leaderboard had just been updated. A hush fell over the plaza as players read the message. Shadow had reached level 5. The shock was instant. People started whispering, how had he climbed 2 levels so quickly? Someone guessed he must have taken down a boss monster. Another player mentioned seeing him just 10 minutes ago in the town square, casually selling gear. The news didn't add up. How had he jumped so far ahead in such a short time? One guy half-joking said his sister had just turned 18. Maybe they should just try setting her up with Shadow. After all, getting help from someone that powerful would be an absolute lifesaver. His friend instantly shot that idea down, reminding him that Shadow had already turned down a 10 million offer. If that wasn't enough, a blind date wasn't going to do the trick either. Back at Wang Mang's camp, the mood shifted. Their earlier celebrations suddenly felt hollow. Shadow had already broken through level 5, while they'd only just escaped level 3. Some started to worry, wondering if they'd fall behind for good. But Wang Mang remained composed. He urged his team to focus on what really mattered, logging out and warning their families. If this game was leaking into reality, they had to act fast. As their avatars began to fade, the system confirmed the logout process. Wang Mang's final words were steady and serious. If the world was tilting toward disaster, they had a duty to protect the people they loved. The scene cut to the real world. Wang Mang's eyes fluttered open. Almost immediately, voices called out for the captain. Uniformed officers rushed to his side, their expressions laced with anxiety. One of them admitted they'd panicked. His body had started going transparent while he was unconscious. The horrifying realization hit them. Players who died or ran out of lifespan in the game didn't just vanish from the digital world, they were wiped from reality too. But there was no time to dwell on it. Wang Mang stood up and called the team together. Something bigger was happening, and they had to be ready. Someone asked Wang Mang for a detailed statement, and he began explaining that his squad had entered as a coordinated party, and that each member had unlocked a unique hidden class, which had given them a strong start. Yet despite that, they had nearly been wiped out by a single elite monster. They would have died there if not for the sudden intervention of an unknown player called Shadow. Wang Mang confirmed the truth of everything. In his account, he went on to highlight just how incredibly fast Shadow had been advancing. When Shadow saved them, he was already level 3, but by the time their own team finally reached that same level, Shadow had already climbed to level 5, jumping 2 whole levels in what felt like no time at all. This news left the higher-ups feeling profoundly unsettled. One of them voiced the question weighing on everyone's mind. Does this mean Shadow is already the top player in the world? And how did he gain levels so quickly? Theories started flying around. Wang Mang offered one himself. Maybe Shadow managed to bring down a high-ranking boss, or accomplished some incredible feat beyond the usual leveling methods. But then, one officer noticed something strange in the report. If Shadow was already level 3 when he assisted them, why hadn't he logged out like the rest of them? It raised a troubling idea. Maybe Shadow didn't have anyone waiting for him outside. Maybe no family, no friends, nothing tying him back to reality. A female officer then voiced a truly bold theory. She guessed that Shadow might actually be a transmigrator, someone who didn't belong in this world to begin with. People like that often grew strong, fast, and usually had no attachments like family. Her explanation made sense in a weird way, and she added that such people often came from nowhere and rose, like they were fated to lead. Her cheeks turned red the moment the room fell quiet, and she realized what she had just suggested. But before anyone else could respond, the lead officer shut her down. He called her out by name, N.U., and told her to stop bringing up novel plots during official meetings, saying she had clearly been reading too many stories. Still, the mood in the room had shifted, and no one could quite dismiss the idea. The lead officer brought attention back to more pressing matters. He revealed that classified reports from researchers had found a disturbing trend. Recently, a sharp increase. A pattern of older people dying in their sleep had been noted, and when they cross-referenced this data with the players who'd returned from the forgotten game of the gods, the results were absolutely terrifying. It turns out, all those people who'd passed away in their sleep had also repeatedly died within the game, meaning, once a player's in-game lifespan hits 0, they don't just vanish from the game, they die for real. One officer couldn't hide his fear, stating this entire game wasn't normal, that it felt more like something completely beyond their comprehension. The unit head nodded in agreement, suggesting it might be a form of incursion from another dimension or plane of existence. His chilling words silenced the entire room once more, and with absolutely no time to waste, he moved on to the next urgent announcement. The government had officially declared an emergency, and all field officers were ordered to form strike teams based on their location and dive into the game themselves. Their mission: gather crucial intelligence and better understand this evolving threat. This wasn't just about the police force anymore. The entire nation was mobilizing, because any delay would mean falling dangerously behind on a global scale. Other countries were already reacting, and the risk of being left behind in this new reality was simply too great. The head then made the official announcement. NU would lead Team 1 as its captain. She accepted without hesitation. Wang Mang would be her second in command, and both were given permission to choose their own teammates. Wang Mang simply nodded, understanding the immense weight of their new role. The officer then shifted focus back to Shadow. Based on Wang Mang's description, Shadow didn't seem to harbor any hostile intentions, at least not yet, which made him a potential ally. The order was crystal clear. NU and Wang Mang were to find him, build a relationship, if at all possible, and bring him over to their side. The officer explained that the primary reason NU had been given leadership was due to her deep grasp of game theory and narrative tropes, which made her uniquely suited for the task, perfectly suited to unraveling someone like Shadow, someone whose incredible progress and skills felt more like pure fiction than hard fact. If successful, they'd gain an invaluable asset, someone who could potentially represent them from within the game itself. The other officers were tasked with maintaining civil order in the real world and preventing widespread panic from spreading. With that, the meeting abruptly concluded, and the sun began to set outside, casting a warm golden hue across the city. The officers, meanwhile, quietly braced for the unpredictable future. The next morning, the scene shifted to a bustling high school classroom, where our protagonist's younger sister sat quietly at her desk, surrounded by the usual chatter of her classmates. A group nearby was excitedly talking about a surprising bit of news. Apparently, Zhang, the student whose body had started fainting, had managed to reach level 3 and safely log out. He had also shared a curious discovery, that if multiple people from the same area went to sleep at the same time, they would all awaken in the same starting village in the game. The idea filled the room with a mix of excitement and concern. One girl was visibly anxious, saying she couldn't leave her parents out of it. She wanted to bring them in, but was scared they'd get hurt since they had no gaming background. Another student disagreed, saying they shouldn't be so quick to involve their families. They needed to get stronger first, and only then protect others when they were ready. The protagonist's sister, meanwhile, stared at her phone, her heart heavy with frustration. Her brother still hadn't messaged her, not a word, not even a single apology for hitting her. The silence was unbearable. It wasn't like him. Before, whenever they fought, or even when she messed up, he would always patch things up somehow. But now, nothing. Not a text, not a call, not even a sign of regret. Their parents had never hit her. Not even once, but her brother had raised his hand, and was now pretending like nothing had happened. She tried to justify her actions all over again. All she had done was skip class to attend. Was Song's concert really such a big deal, anyway? She pouted stubbornly, her mind firmly made up. Unless he called her to profusely apologize, 1,000 times over, she'd never forgive him again. Yet, her bitterness slowly faded, morphing into something softer as her thoughts drifted back to Song. The concert last night truly had been amazing, and now, she was so glad she'd gone. With everything going on, she might not get another chance to see him perform, once the forgotten game of the gods completely took over the world. Her cheeks turned a delicate pink as she remembered just how close she'd been to the stage, the lights, the music, the way he smiled. It was all still so fresh in her mind. It made her heart race with excitement. Then a sudden realization hit her. If everyone enters the game world while asleep, then Song must be entering it too. Her cheeks flushed at the thought of encountering him inside the game. Could this be her big opportunity? Is destiny finally giving her a nudge in his direction? Her pulse quickens with pure anticipation. While preparing to sleep, another thought crosses her mind. Zhang had reached level 3 incredibly fast. That must mean he'd already gotten a good grasp on the game. If she wanted to perform, well, she'd need some solid guidance. Without wasting time, she sends Zhang a message, asking if he has any useful advice before she logs in. Zhang, sitting with a group of classmates, checks his phone and sees her message. A smirk forms on his lips. The school beauty, asking him for help? It's unexpected, and too good to pass up. He knows this is a golden chance to make a connection, whatever form it might take. He replies quickly, assuring her she's absolutely come to the right person. His main tip: when she starts the game, she should allocate. All her initial attribute points to agility. Without that, she won't be able to outrun the early game monsters and will just keep getting killed. She's surprised. Wouldn't that be a problem if she chooses a mage class? Zhang confidently reassures her. Agility isn't just for physical fighters. Mages benefit from it too, especially since it boosts casting speed. That'll make a massive difference early on. Still feeling unsure, she asks what to do if even that isn't enough. Zhang confidently assures her she has nothing to worry about. Once someone in their starting village hits level 5, a teleportation portal will unlock, connecting all beginner villages. After that, she can team up with stronger players to power level. He also promises to find her once the teleport system is live. Hearing that, her worries vanish, and she smiles in bed. People like Zhang are incredibly convenient, she thinks. It looks like she already has a reliable support system. But just before she drifts off, another mischievous plan begins to form. This is perfect. She'll enter the game before her brother does, level up faster, and get super strong. And once he finally joins, she won't lift a finger to help him. No guidance, no handouts. He'll have to survive on his own. Satisfied with that thought, she drifts off, her heart brimming with excitement for the game world awaiting her. Meanwhile, the story shifts back to our protagonist, who stands victorious over the corpse of a defeated boss monster. Among the scattered loot, a glowing ring catches his eye. As he picks it up, a system message informs him he's acquired the cursed ring. This rare gold-tier item is a universal accessory that increases all primary stats: strength, agility, intelligence, and endurance by 8 points each. In total, that's an incredible 32 extra stat points. It also raises dark element resistance by 26, and boosts weak point damage by a massive 50%. The only requirement is that the wearer must be level 4 or above. He scans the item carefully. The stat bonus alone is worth nearly 3 full levels. With the added elemental defense and increased precision damage, this ring is clearly a powerful asset. Without hesitation, He puts it on and prepares to move forward. Another system alert soon appears. He has unlocked a new skill, Instant Shadow Slash, a silver-grade ability meant for assassin builds. The skill unleashes a rapid series of slashes in a straight line. It strikes enemies up to 15 meters away. Foes caught within its 2.1 meter wide arc are hit 3 times, each strike dealing 100 base damage and counting as a backstab. The skill also grants 5 seconds of instant invisibility. Its only downside? It can't target weak points, and has a 12-second cooldown. This skill is absolutely packed with potential. Solid damage, amazing area control, and a brief window of safety. He learns it immediately. Still holding a few evolution points, he decides to enhance one of his favorite abilities, Greedy Hand. Spending 8 evolution points, he evolves it from Jade rank straight to Diamond. The results are truly significant. The chance of getting bonus drops from enemies increases from 160% to a whopping 220%. Plus, the odds of that loot being a higher tier jump from 20% to a solid 40%. In short, almost every enemy he kills will now drop 2 pieces of loot, with a good chance that at least one of them will be top quality. Satisfied, but not quite done, he uses 3 more evolution points to level up. Instant Shadow Slash. The skill's range expands from 15 meters to 21, and the slash path widens to 3.1 meters. The damage per hit doubles from 100 to 200, and instead of 3 strikes, enemies now get hit 5 times. The cooldown drops to just over 10 seconds, and the invisibility duration stretches to 7 seconds. Every hit still triggers backstab effects, even if it can't land on weak points. Looking over the rest of the items, he sees mostly junk, but one thing truly stands out. A silver-grade warrior skill book titled Battle Roar. He can't use it himself, but he knows it'll fetch a great price when sold, for tradable lifespan. Just as he finishes sorting through the loot, something catches his attention in the distance. 3 towering creatures move toward him. He recognizes them right away. Limb crawlers. Dangerous level 4 beasts, known for their grotesque appearance and unpredictable attacks. But instead of running, he sees an opportunity to test his new strength. He activates Instant Shadow Slash, vanishing into a blur of motion. A rapid chain of slashes cuts through all 3 monsters before they can even react. As their bodies collapse to the ground, the system informs him he's earned 80 experience points and 5 additional days of tradable lifespan. Standing among the wreckage, he feels a strange, ominous energy radiating from within him. His power has grown immensely. He thinks for a moment. If he combines Poison Dart with Instant Shadow Slash, he could potentially wipe out enemies before they ever fight back. It's a deadly combo. Checking his lifespan count, he sees he has 618 days remaining. But to bring game abilities and items into the real world, he'll need at least 900. That's roughly 2.5 more years. He sets a goal. First, sell off all valuable items in his inventory. With the right trades, he might reach 900 days even faster. And once he hits level 10, he'll be able to bridge the 2 worlds, bringing everything he's built in the game back to reality. The scene shifts to the boy as he silently makes his way back to the starter town, cloaked by his latent image skill. Moving like a shadow, he picks up a conversation nearby. A man is congratulating a woman for reaching level 3, reminding her of a deal they had made earlier. Watching them from a distance, the boy recognizes the pair. It's Lizzie and Mao. From their conversation, it becomes clear that Mao had helped Lizzie level up to 3 so she could safely log out, in exchange for 5 million in cash. Now that she's reached the required level, he's expecting her to follow through on the payment. Lizzie assures him, scoffing at the idea that her father's company wouldn't be able to spare such a small amount. She says she'll log out and take care of the transaction in the real world. Before leaving, she hands him her phone number and tells him to contact her after he's out. Then, she makes another offer. She wants to buy all of his tradable lifespan, offering 10,000 inches cash per day's worth. Mao, absolutely thrilled, agrees without a second thought. A smug smirk plays on his lips. He then scoffs at King Fen for rejecting a similar offer, adding that they can finalize the details once they finally meet in person. Meanwhile, Feng, completely out of sight, watches from mere meters away, his presence totally undetected. Oblivious, Mao continues his arrogant boasting, claiming that lifespan in the game is no big deal. To him, it's just like in-game currency, something easily acquired. He believes the smartest move is to convert his game progress into real-world profit, and prides himself on figuring this out so early. Later, back in the starter town, Feng stands before a massive teleportation gate. As he reaches out a hand toward it, the gate begins to pulse with a vivid blue light. As the glow intensifies, a system window pops up, congratulating him on activating Shell Town's teleportation formation. It awards him 1 reputation point, and also states, he can use the gate for free once per day, but any additional use will cost tradable lifespan. Unfortunately, since no other gates have been activated yet, it's currently completely useless. Feng ponders the teleportation mechanics. The system is bidirectional. Activating one end alone is meaningless. Another player in a different starting town must also reach level 5 and activate the corresponding gate for travel to be possible. He recalls from his past life that Song was stationed in Firefly Town. Determined to stay ahead this time, Feng quickly sets up a special altar that will notify him the instant the Firefly Town gate activates. He has no intention of waiting idly. He's already preparing to confront Song the very moment the opportunity arises. Moving deeper into the town, his focus shifts back to his main objective. While most players obsess over fast travel between towns, Feng knows the true goal lies far beyond that. His true mission is to reach level 10 and enter the god's abandoned realm, where he can finally awaken his authority. That's when the true difficulty of this cursed the game begins. Soon after, he sets up a temporary shop. Instantly, a system notice appears, alerting all nearby players that he's opened a store selling equipment and skill books, but only for 10 seconds. First come, first served. This announcement sends a wave of excitement crashing through the crowd. Players rush toward him, hailing him an expert. Some mention how they've saved up lifespan just for this moment. One boasts about having 150 days saved, while another recalls how the last time Feng opened shop, someone named Gray bought an icicle spell and skyrocketed to second place in the rankings. One player's eyes widen as he finds a silver tier warrior skill book Battle Roar and buys it on the spot. A system message confirms the purchase, stating that the skill book was sold for a massive 300 days of tradable lifespan. The crowd gasps. Some question whether any skill is truly worth that much, but another player explains that Battle Roar, significantly, boosts a warrior's monster farming potential. With it, the buyer could easily earn back the 300 days in less than 2. Seeing the value of what Feng is offering, the crowd surges forward, desperate to buy anything they can before it disappears. Within seconds, everything is gone. Fang checks his system window. In just 1 minute, he has collected 650 days worth of tradable lifespan, bringing his total to 2,174. But he's still not satisfied. He knows that, to transfer his abilities, equipment, and attributes into the real world, he'll need far more. As a few frustrated players grumble about missing their chance, they ask if he'll set up shop again. He nods in confirmation. Just then, a female player calls out, saying she has a treasure and wonders if he'd be interested in a trade. When he turns to face her, he immediately recognizes her as one of Wang Mang's teammates. The system scans the item, identifying it as a space ring with 12 inventory slots. Even better, it doesn't take up a backpack or equipment slot. Feng is utterly stunned. He knows just how rare this item is. Players can only carry 3 storage backpacks, and a space ring like this one, that doesn't occupy any gear slots, is an incredibly rare find. Technically, such rings can drop from any monster, but the odds are incredibly low. For her to get one this early, likely due to her profession, related to profit or luck, is absolutely astonishing. Without hesitation, Feng asks for her price, already estimating its value. In his previous life, a 12-slot space ring like this sold for 3,600 days worth of lifespan. But instead of asking for lifespan, she surprises him with a completely different offer. She doesn't want any lifespan at all. Instead, she wants him to add her as a friend and join her in defeating a boss monster. Feng immediately agrees, and a system notice confirms that player Big Plum has accepted his friend request. As they head out of Shelltown together, Feng asks her for details about the boss. Plum replies it's a gold-tier monster, though she didn't catch its name, as it was too far away. As Plum explains that the boss is on an old boat in the swamp, Feng is taken aback. He wonders if it's the Golden Ghost ship, a rare, special boss capable of appearing at any level. The chance of encountering it is slim, but when it does show up, it's known to spark intense battles among large guilds, all fighting for the powerful gear it drops. The very sight of it could ignite a fierce conflict. But from Plum's description, Feng believes this version is likely around level 5, making it the easiest to defeat. Still, he can't help but question how Plum came across such a rare boss so close to the starting town. His mind races as he tries to piece together the puzzle. The space ring, her connection to Wang Mang's team, and now this lucky encounter. with a gold-tier boss. A thought suddenly hits him. Could she be the rumored koi fish from his past life? He remembers hearing whispers about a member of Wang Mang's team who had an uncanny knack for finding rare bosses, precious treasure chests, and hidden spots just by wandering around. At the time, he dismissed it as just a cover story to obscure their true abilities. But now, seeing Plum right in front of him, he realizes those rumors were likely spot on. Lost in his thoughts, Feng watches her carefully, trying to make sense of everything. Plum notices his gaze and blushes, asking why he's staring so intently. Feng quickly snaps out of his reverie, assuring her it's nothing, and refocusing on their journey. As they pass through the main gate of the starter town, they remain oblivious to a figure lurking nearby. A bald player, who'd been watching them closely from behind a tree. The scene shifts to a group of rough-looking players, led by a long-haired man who confidently boasts about his past victories, such as leading his team to conquer the overlord of Sand City. He tells his followers that if they stay with him, they'll conquer the game. Just as he's about to continue, the bald player watching Feng rushes back with news. Feng has left town with a girl. The leader grins, thinking Feng is just another young player, distracted by a pretty face. Without hesitation, he gathers his group and orders them to move out. It's time to act. Meanwhile, as Feng and Plum continue their journey, Feng outlines his terms for helping Plum's party. He agrees that any equipment or skill books the boss drops that Plum can use will go to her, but the rest will be his. Plum thinks it over and asks about what the other party members like Wang Mong will get from the deal. Feng explains that since their party members play different roles, there's no guarantee that assassin gear will drop, and if it does, it wouldn't be fair for him to fight for something that won't benefit him. Understanding his reasoning, Plum agrees to the terms, but adds a small request. If any gear drops for her captain or other party members, she asks Feng if he'd be willing to sell it to her at a discount. Feng agrees. Plum then mentions they'll wait for Wang Mang and the rest of their party to log back into the game before they head to the boss's location. After some walking, Plum realizes she has no idea where they're even going. Only then does Feng finally reveal their destination. They're heading to fight a gold-tier boss monster. Plum is completely taken aback by the audacity of this plan. Feng is an assassin, and she's a mage. She can't possibly take a hit from such a powerful foe. Facing a gold-tier boss with just the two of them seems like a death wish, but Feng remains calm and assured as he explains that he doesn't intend for her to fight at all. His plan is to tackle the boss alone, while she stays at a safe distance and watches. Despite Feng's confidence, Plum can't believe it. She knows he's strong, but defeating a gold-tier boss solo is simply unheard of. As she prepares to ask him more questions, Feng suddenly stops, sensing something. Without a word, he activates his latent image skill and vanishes into thin air. Plum is left standing there, stunned. Moments ago he was right beside her, but now there's only empty space. She calls out for him, but there's no answer. Meanwhile, the group of bald-headed players continues to observe from a distance. Their leader smiles, confident in their advantage. But then, one of his men notices something strange. Feng has disappeared. The leader dismisses it, thinking Feng must have tricked Plum and left her behind. With a wicked grin, he orders his group to move in and capture Plum first, planning to have some fun before anything else. As they close in, the leader reminds them that sticking with him will guarantee a good life, and that even women are falling into their laps. But just as they get close, a shadowy figure materializes right in front of them. The leader freezes, his grin fading as he looks into the swirling, dark aura. Confusion flashes in his eyes. Before he can react, Feng uses his instant shadow skill, and in the blink of an eye, the fight is over. A cold gleam slices through the air, and the group falls. They drop, lifeless, to the ground before they even knew what hit them. Feng melts back into the shadows, vanishing without a trace. A system notification flashes, confirming the kills, and awarding him 12 days of tradable lifespan. Feng barely glances at the fallen bodies, dismissing them instantly. Their meager loot is barely worth a thing. Taking them down felt like hunting low-level grunts. Feng reappears beside Plum, who remains utterly oblivious to what just transpired. She immediately questions his sudden disappearance, and Feng casually explains that he sent a few followers back to town. Plum seems satisfied with the answer at first, but her curiosity quickly gets the better of her, and she starts peppering him with questions. She jokes that she thought he left to relieve himself, and muses about how convenient his invisibility skill must be, even suggesting that it lets him handle business without being seen. Feng sharply cuts her off, Clearly not amused by the conversation's turn, he tells her to focus up and hurry. They still need to reach the gold-tier boss monster. Meanwhile, back in Shelltown, the ground begins to glow faintly, signaling the arrival of a new player. It's Feng's sister, who has just spawned, with the healer class. Her eyes widen in astonishment, as she spots a magical staff nearby. Picking it up confirms the reality of everything around her. Everything feels incredibly tangible. Nearby, players quickly notice her presence, recognizing that she's new to the game. She's elated. Having secured the rare hidden class, Sacrifice, which she assumes must be incredibly powerful, she's convinced that this class will be her way to attract Song's attention. However, uncertainty fills her mind as she wonders where Song could be, and whether he's aware of the secrets surrounding the spawn locations. Rage flickers in her eyes as she thinks about Feng, who's usually watching over her constantly, yet failed to be there at this crucial time. Choosing not to dwell on it, she reminded herself she now possessed a times-hidden class asterisk. And not just that. Jiang Wei had already volunteered to help her level up. From this point forward, Feng would just have to manage on his own. She had no intention of worrying about him anymore. As she shifted her gaze to the leaderboard, her shock was instantaneous. Upon seeing that a player named Shadow had already blasted to level 6. This infuriated her, especially since Jiang Wei, who often bragged about his strength, was only level 3. It became crystal clear. Shadow was the real-times expert here. She reasoned that if she could team up with him, her progress would skyrocket much faster than with Jiang Wei. But the burning question remained, how could she possibly find this elusive player? Meanwhile, nearby, a group of players were discussing their current predicament. They were from Wang Men's party and were growing increasingly anxious because they hadn't heard from their healer, Sui. With no time to spare, Wang Men pressed for suggestions. One player noted their inability to defeat tough monsters without a healer, while another added that they weren't as skilled as Shadow, who could easily handle combat all alone. They suggested urgently searching for a replacement healer. Just then, Feng's sister approached them with a smile and offered her assistance. She let them know she had acquired the hidden class, Life Sacrifice. For her, it was the perfect opportunity to prove herself. Elsewhere, deep in a swamp at the base of a cliff, Fang and Plum stood, surveying the treacherous area. Hidden within the misty waters was the legendary Golden Ghost Ship. Using his shadow sneak ability, Feng swiftly vanished, instructing Plum to stay hidden and watch for any ambushes while he dealt with the boss. Although confused, Plum agreed, telling him to be cautious. Fang then descended into the murky swamp, triggering an immediate system notification. It warned of a violent domain, caused by the ghost ship's presence. The area drained its lifespan at a rate 100 times faster than normal. Feng quickly calculated that remaining there for just 15 minutes would cost him an entire day of his life. Fortunately, this accelerated time effect didn't pose much of a threat to times him asterisk. The system then identified the golden tier boss. The ghost ship stood as a formidable level 5 boss. A timer suddenly appeared, giving him 45 minutes and 25 seconds to utterly defeat it. A welcome relief, as this was more than enough time. Unleashing instant shadow slash, Feng launched into a rapid assault, dealing 150 damage before the boss could even react. He followed up with a swift venom dart that precisely struck the ship's bell, triggering a critical hit and disabling its stealth ability. He then smartly retreated, preparing for the next phase. One of the biggest, most infuriating challenges with this boss was its incredibly elusive weak point. Most players assumed it was the ship itself or its skeleton, but the actual, hidden vulnerability lay in the ghostly fire bell on the ship's prow. Enraged by this unexpected attack, the boss violently manipulated the surrounding water, generating massive, deadly water pillars. Feng dodged skillfully, all thanks to his incredible agility, knowing that early-stage warriors in mere silver gear would be utterly wiped out by such an attack. Then came another terrifying threat. Dozens of decaying, zombie-like creatures began emerging from the murky swamp. These were the infamous water ghosts, each possessing silver-tier strength. Fortunately, Feng's superior stealth kept him completely undetected among them. Normally, this summoning would send most parties spiraling into chaos. The boss would also ceaselessly spawn additional water ghosts, every 3 minutes, quickly overwhelming anyone who wasn't lightning fast. But because he had entered the area completely undetected, Feng had a crucial tactical edge when the moment was just right. He activated his instant shadow slash once again, darting like a phantom through the swamp, and eliminating all 12 ghosts in one breathtaking sweep. Up on the cliff, Plum trembled as she watched on. She was completely awestruck by Feng's sheer prowess, understanding now exactly why he held the know. one rank. To her, he was nothing short of a force of nature, appearing and vanishing in mere seconds, striking with devastating, lethal efficiency. She watched as he effortlessly reduced the boss's health by more than half without allowing a single counterattack. Then, through the game's chat, Feng contacted her, referring to her by the unexpected nickname, Little Black, and casually telling her he would soon die and revive later. Plum, absolutely stunned, asked, "Who is Little Black?" She clarified that her in-game name was actually Big Plum, and even added that Little Black sounded more like a dog's name. Just then, a man stomped his foot, seething with frustration. This was someone Feng had completely trounced before, and this time, he'd returned with his entire squad. He was furious. Once a powerful legend, now humiliated. He felt utterly insulted, bested by a mere girl. Soon after, one of his subordinates burst onto the scene, excitedly exclaiming that he'd spotted the girl high up on the cliff, and Shadow was battling the boss solo down below. Determined to avenge his crushing prior defeat, the man and his team charged headlong into the swamp. Meanwhile, the ghost ship boss grew increasingly aggressive, and its bell glowed brightly. Feng had reached phase 4 of the battle, the most challenging stage yet. The boss raised its oar and unleashed a devastating wave attack. At half health, it activated Soul Surge, sending powerful, destructive waves rippling through the swamp. Plum's eyes widened in sheer terror. As the blast instantly disabled Feng's invisibility, a giant column of water erupted right beneath him, trapping him helplessly in place, and inflicting over a staggering 1,000 points of damage. The system confirmed his death, reporting a devastating loss of 326 years of non-tradable lifespan, and a whopping 1,087 days of tradable lifespan. Back on the cliff, the leader was absolutely thrilled, thinking Feng had grown too arrogant after being lauded as an expert. To him, Feng was utterly foolish for attempting to solo a gold-tier boss. Upon seeing Feng's scattered lifespan orbs on the ground, the group instantly rushed toward them, believing they'd stumbled upon a massive reward. Judging by the orb's sheer size, they guessed it held at least 100 days of lifespan. Intent on claiming both the precious loot and the boss kill, they advanced confidently, until they suddenly found themselves inexplicably airborne. The leader looked around in utter confusion, unable to grasp what had just happened to them. After being instantly teleported back to Shelltown, the group felt an overwhelming wave of frustration. None of them could fathom why the boss had been so ridiculously powerful, or how the player Shadow had managed to wound it so severely. Some members were absolutely furious. The moment they'd stepped into the swamp, the boss had instantly eliminated them with a massive water pillar. The area itself was absolutely swarming with smaller enemies, making combat nearly impossible for them. Their leader clenched his teeth, refusing to accept this defeat. He simply couldn't accept such a crushing loss. He immediately ordered everyone to regroup. He was determined to make another attempt, no matter what. Meanwhile, Feng had already returned to the swamp and looked around. He was utterly confused by the abundance of lifespan, orbs scattered across the ground. Through the in-game chat, he notified Plum of his return, and asked why there was so much lifespan just lying around. Plum was surprised he had made it back so quickly, and explained that a large, aggressive group had charged in, only to be instantly wiped out by the boss's devastating attack. Feng allowed himself a small, knowing smile. They had clearly overestimated themselves. Still, he remembered his own past, struggles with the ghost ship boss. The boss continued to roam the swamp, and Feng kept a careful watch. He knew from experience that the ship would only use its immobilization skill once. After that, dealing with it became much more manageable. Below half health, there was a set chance that the ghost ship would vanish and reappear elsewhere, which made defeating it without delay a truly difficult task for most players. Wasting no time, Feng launched a poison dart directly at the ship's bell, instantly triggering its aggression. As it began preparing another attack, Feng used Shadow Sneak to vanish in an instant. He then observed the boss's behavior carefully, identifying the familiar patterns, before closing in with his instant Shadow Slash. His attacks landed precisely and powerfully. Meanwhile, the enemy leader and his team reached the cliff once again. One of them pointed out that Feng was already engaged in combat with the boss. Hearing this, the leader became absolutely enraged, and started looking for a way to eliminate both Feng and the boss. From the cliff, Plum watched the group return and grew furious. Feng was on the verge of finishing the boss, and she refused to let them interfere again. Gripping her staff tightly, she summoned a powerful thunder spell. A lightning strike erupted from her staff, striking the group below them, leaving some of them horrifically charred. The survivors stood frozen in shock, while their leader, absolutely enraged, demanded to know who dared attack them. One of his men quickly pointed at Plum, identifying her as the source of the attack. He grabbed his axe and roared, ordering his men to kill her. Terrified, Plum spun around and fled, screaming for help. The group mobbed after her, shouting menacing threats. Not far from the chaotic scene, two men lurking behind a tree watched the chaos unfold. As Plum and the others got closer, they pressed themselves deeper into cover. The swamp. Feng had strategically drawn back from the boss, observing it closely. Its health was critically depleted. Even though it was only a level 5 boss, the Golden Ghost ship had been surprisingly difficult to defeat solo. His damage output was still low, and the fight had gone on long enough to attract unwanted attention. Spotting a group on the cliff, he recognized them as the ones who had just died earlier. He also noticed another group positioned near the swamp, clearly waiting for him to kill the boss, so they could ambush him and claim the loot for themselves. The poison finally began to consume the boss. Its body started to fade as its eyes glowed with an ominous light. A moment later, the system broadcasted a notification. The Golden Ghost ship has been defeated. Feng gained 480 experience points, reaching level 8, along with 7 evolution points, and 216 days of tradable lifespan. Activating Shadow. Sneak once again, he vanished into stealth. Across the server, a general announcement echoed, Shadow, a player from Shelltown, had become the first to kill a gold-grade boss. He earned 3 reputation points, and the notice drew the attention of all nearby players. Most were completely baffled. No one knew who Shadow was, or how he had managed such a feat. Many were furious, believing that such an achievement should have come from a top player in Han City. Wang Meng stared at the message in utter confusion. It hadn't been long since Shadow was battling a bronze boss, and now he had already soloed a gold boss. He couldn't understand the vast difference in strength between then and now. Fang's sister, upon seeing the system announcement, her eyes gleamed with fierce determination. She was now certain that Shadow was the strongest. She believed if she could level up with his help, she would eventually find Brother Song. Back at the swamp, the ghost ship's body had vanished, leaving behind a bounty of loot and lifespan. And from behind the tree, the hidden group watched with greedy expressions. Their leader grinned, seeing the abundance of items. Realizing that Shadow had gone invisible without collecting the loot, they knew he must be nearby and started preparing. He ordered Huang to use a detection skill. Huang nodded, drew his bow, and activated Phantom Horned Eagle. He fired an arrow that transformed into a ghostly bird. It exploded mid-air, scattering feathers over the swamp. Feng watched the feathers fall, surprised that the hunter had already learned an anti-invisibility skill. It wasn't unexpected that they felt so confident. They clearly thought they could take him down and steal his loot. However, their detection skill was only level 1, and it couldn't penetrate Feng's advanced invisibility, which came with his assassin class. Feeling confident, Huang turned to the others and declared that Shadow had likely fled. The group then moved toward the loot, planning to secure it first and wait out the timer. After 5 minutes, the loot would become theirs. They smiled, believing they had won. But just as they relaxed, Shadow reappeared, their faces twisted in pure shock. Before they could react, Feng struck like lightning, taking them all down in a flash. With the area finally quiet, Feng turned his focus to the loot. A thought crossed his mind. Where had Plum gone? He decided to look for her later. For now, he had enough evolution points to upgrade. Greedy Hand. After the upgrade, it reached epic quality. The skill now had a 220% to 300% chance of generating extra loot from monster corpses, and all extra drops were guaranteed to be 1 tier higher. He activated the skill, causing the loot to gather together and glow. As Greedy Hand absorbed the items, Feng smiled. A bright light, the forest glowed as the results materialized. A total of 21 evolution points, plus 648 days of tradable lifespan, and 2 special items. Ghost Fire Bells. Fang's eyes widened, captivated by the sight. These rare items prevented all lifespan loss upon death, but came with a cooldown of 1,560 seconds. Each bell granted 2 incredible abilities. Soul Absorption, a passive skill that boosted lifespan gain from kills by 20%, and Soul Shock, an active skill that immobilized all enemies within a 100-meter radius for 3 seconds, with a 512-second cooldown. Crucially, since the bells were classified as items, not equipment, both shared a single inventory slot, and didn't consume any equipment slots. As Feng reviewed the fresh loot, Plum abruptly contacted him via voice chat. Her panicked voice urgently pleaded for help. Alarmed, Feng asked where she was. The only response he received was the harrowing sound of her terrified screams and pleas for them to stay away from her. Plum was utterly terrified. The leader and his menacing men had finally cornered her. With twisted grins, they praised her for her stubborn resistance, claiming there was nowhere left for her to escape. One of them mockingly told her to come quietly, promising they'd make her feel so good, she'd ascend to heaven. Her fists clenched tight in anger and disgust. Glancing desperately behind her, she realized she'd backed herself right to the edge of a cliff. With her heart pounding and her resolve hardening, she made a snap decision. She wasn't going to let these bastards have the satisfaction of killing her. Without hesitation, she hurled herself backward. Right off the cliff, the group was caught completely off guard, staring in utter disbelief as her body plunged. She crashed into the ground below with brutal force, her health instantly vanishing as a dark pool of blood spread beneath her. Her corpse then began to dissolve into orbs of lifespan. The leader peeked over the edge, genuinely baffled. He hadn't expected her to actually jump. "She's got some guts," he muttered. Back in Shelltown, Plum messaged Feng, telling him there was no need to come to her aid. No more, she had died, and now they were safe. Despite the pain, a wave of relief washed over her. All their tradable lifespan was stored on Captain Wang Meng anyway, so they hadn't lost anything truly valuable. Feng felt an immense sense of relief. He told her to wait for him right here. He'd bring her some of the loot. Plum brightened at his words, praising his hard work. With the danger finally gone, Feng swept up all the remaining lifespan. Orbs scattered across the swampy terrain. This time, the haul was absolutely massive. His tradable lifespan now sat at a staggering 315 days. He also earned a solid 21 evolution points. He considered upgrading his greedy hand skill, but a system message quickly popped up, informing him that the skill had already reached epic quality and would now require 10 times the usual amount of evolution points. The system asked if he wanted to spend 210 evolution points to evolve Greedy Hand. Feng wasn't surprised. It was expected that high-tier skills would demand more. For now, he chose to hold off, believing increased damage output would give him better returns in boss fights and more lucrative loot. That mattered more right now. He focused instead on instant shadow slash, evolving it from platinum to diamond quality. The attack range increased from 21 meters to 27 meters, the invisibility duration increased from 7 seconds to 9 seconds. The number of slashes jumped from 5 to 7, and each slash now dealt a whopping 300 bonus damage, instead of the previous 200. The slash length grew from 3.1 meters to 4.1 meters. The total duration of the skill became 10 seconds. He spent 10 evolution points, leaving him with only 3 left. He then enhanced his initial skill, Backstab. It jumped from normal quality directly to gold, skipping bronze and silver entirely. The system updated the skill, increasing Backstab's damage boost from 15% to a massive 30%. Feng smiled. With Instant Shadow, Slash evolved and Backstab enhanced, his total damage output had more than doubled. Even without breaking Stealth, he could now deal up to 3,000 damage. Should he break Stealth, a full combo could unleash between 6,000 and 7,000 damage. Opening the system window, he eagerly reviewed his newly upgraded arsenal. He recalled that gold-tier bosses usually dropped 2 to 4 silver items, with only a small chance of gold equipment, but thanks to Greedy Hand, he had scored an astonishing 11 gold-tier items and skill books, plus 2 platinum equipment pieces, and 1 platinum-tier skill book. Even better, 3 of the items were perfectly tailored for assassin classes. Among them were the Ghost Chip Dual Blades, a platinum-tier assassin, weapon boasting a base damage of 136, agility plus 22, attack speed plus 24%, and armor penetration plus 17. The level requirement? Just 5. The weapon boasted a unique effect. Each normal attack would deal damage twice. Feng immediately equipped the dual blades. Though he rarely relied on normal attacks, the base stats alone were excellent. The boost to attack speed would also accelerate his skill usage and reduce cooldowns, and the armor penetration was a definite bonus. Next, he equipped the Ghostfire Leather Armor, a gold-tier chest piece with 25 physical defense, 50 fire resistance, 14 damage block, and an additional 419 health points. The level requirement was also 5. Feng was stunned. Despite leveling up, his base constitution hadn't increased much. His max HP was still 350. Yet this armor piece alone had boosted his health significantly. Beyond that, with it equipped, most average players wouldn't even be able to land a scratch on him. Using the system settings, he made his new armor invisible, and switched his outward appearance back to the base assassin look. That way, enemies wouldn't realize how well equipped he was, unless they actually checked his profile. He wasn't done yet. There was one more item to review. Lurking in his inventory was a gold-tier skill book, Ghost Shadow Blur, an assassin class ability. It granted a passive 15% dodge rate, and each time a dodge successfully triggered, it would provide full immunity to all damage for a moment. Feng grinned, having finally acquired a survival skill perfect for assassins. Then he remembered, most players avoided this particular skill. The dodge stat was notoriously difficult to build in this game, and focusing on it meant sacrificing other vital stats. If a dodge didn't activate, the player could be instantly killed. But Feng was different. He could evolve skills without penalty. For him, raising dodge wouldn't weaken his other attributes at all. It was all upside. With everything sorted, he moved out from the area. The remaining loot consisted of gear for warriors, priests, and archers. He planned to sell them all to Wang Mang with a 10% discount. Even if they couldn't afford them now, he knew Wang Mang would sell them on credit without hesitation. This massive upgrade was all thanks to Plum. Without her koi-like luck, he never would have found a level 5 ghost ship in time. He made a mental note. He owed her one, and he'd make sure to thank her properly. As Feng passed a tree, the furious leader and his remaining men appeared. They spotted each other simultaneously. But it was the leader's side whose faces turned pale with fear. The moment they recognized him as Shadow, they started running, overwhelmed by panic. As expected, Feng had no intention of letting them escape. He activated Shadow, Stealth, and sighed lightly as the skill took effect. Before they could take another step, Feng dashed forward like a bolt of thunder, swiftly eliminating all of the subordinates in a single blur of motion. The leader panicked and tried to run at full speed, but Feng appeared directly in front of him, deactivating his stealth mode. The man's face nearly collided with Feng, and his eyes welled with tears. Trembling, he begged for mercy, admitting his mistake and pleading for forgiveness. He claimed he had less than a year of lifespan left. But Feng, staring at him with a cold, indifferent gaze, simply asked if he'd considered his own fate when attacking others without hesitation or remorse. Feng struck him with a poisoned dart. As the man writhed in agony, Fang simply turned and walked away. After slaying so many players, a new system message popped up. Killer state activated. He had entered it. He was currently at the first layer of this state. This status meant that if he were to die, he would lose a whopping 75% of his remaining lifespan. Feng remained perfectly calm. He possessed the ghost fire bell, and even if he died just once, it would protect him from any loss. Back in Shelltown, he noticed everyone staring at him. Whispers and murmurs quickly spread, as people recognized him as the one who had recently slain a gold-tier boss. However, many were puzzled since he wore no visible equipment. Some assumed he had exploited game bugs to achieve victory. As he was passing through the area, a man ran up to him, asking him to wait. Feng turned, curious. The man, trying to appear casual, showed him a skill book and explained, with a forced smile, that they had bought the wrong item. It was meant for assassins, so he insisted Feng take it, adding that he hoped they could forget the past. The system quickly identified the item. It was a rare skill book called Impale, a single-target skill that added 20 attack points and caused a 2-second stun with a cooldown of 22 seconds. Feng's eyes narrowed slightly in surprise. It was a control skill, rare and highly valuable. He accepted it, and continued on his way, while the group dispersed in another direction. Among the group, one man was furious and complained that they had been forced to give Feng a skill book just to appease him. Another man agreed, frustrated, that they had been treated with such disrespect. One of them then suggested using their contacts to gather more people, claiming that even if each person only contributed a single spit, they could drown Feng with sheer numbers. Zhan Sha, their leader, stared ahead with a serious expression. He noted how fast Shadow was leveling and growing, clearly operating solo, which meant he likely had a powerful secret. Zhan Sha then proposed tracking him down in real life and snatching him up. If they could uncover his secret, they could even force him to work as their slave, collecting lifespan for them. Another man praised Zhan Sha for his incredibly clever plan. Since Shadow's voice sounded unfamiliar and clearly not from around here, they assumed he was poor. It wouldn't be hard to manipulate someone like that. They agreed to send in a professional beauty to lure him in and extract information. Meanwhile, Feng had met up with Plum and told her to accept the trade, saying he had a special gift for her. Her eyes lit up with joy, though she corrected him, reminding him her name wasn't Little Black but Big Plum. Feng handed her a powerful necklace containing a devastating fire-based skill. As soon as she used it, flames erupted from her staff, and her face brightened with excitement. The skill significantly increased her damage, output, and more than doubled her mana regeneration. She thanked him sincerely, but Feng brushed it off, saying he was just honoring their agreement. Then he asked for the space ring. She smiled shyly as she took it from her inventory, telling him he could keep it. Her cheeks reddened slightly as she explained that while running through the forest earlier, she had stumbled upon an underground cave that looked like the entrance to a ruin, and asked if he was interested. Feng was surprised. First the golden ghost ship, and now a ruin? He was beginning to think that being friends with Plum brought unusually good luck. If he hadn't given her 2 gold-tier pieces of equipment, she might not have shared this information with him. With the addition of the space ring, his inventory finally expanded to 27 slots. Feng asked where Wang Mang was, saying that once he sold some items, he would investigate the ruin. She raised her hand and explained that Wang, Mang and the others had gone to train a new priest, and wouldn't return soon. Opening the map, she marked the location of the entrance. She told him that there was a stone slab hidden behind the bushes, which she had moved aside while hiding. She'd only taken a few steps inside before terrifying screams sent her running. That's when the others finally caught up. Without another word, Feng vanished, heading straight for the ruins. Plum was left behind, a little bewildered by his abrupt exit. Feng tore through the forest at breakneck speed. His original plan was to grind levels until he hit level 10, but with a ruin available, there was no need. Generally, 3 types of ruins could appear near a beginner town: tombs, cursed ruins, and temples of faith. Regardless of type, the standard monsters inside were bronze tier, and there was a good chance of encountering silver tier foes too. To him, that meant nothing but a literal sea of lifespan and evolution points, ripe for the taking. Following the map Plum had marked, Feng quickly arrived at the ruin's entrance. Wasting no time, he stepped inside, his mind racing with possibilities. Whether this was a tomb, a cursed ruin, or a forgotten temple, he was ready for whatever lay ahead. There wasn't much to say about tombs. Monsters were packed densely within, and clearing them was a difficult task, especially since, at the very end, there was almost always a gold-tier boss waiting. Cursed ruins were teeming with creatures twisted by ancient, evil gods, many of whom were once human. Some had gone completely mad during life, others transformed into ghosts after death. As for temples of faith, they were labyrinthine structures filled with followers of long-lost deities, adorned with ancient murals that covered every single corridor. If one could manage to survive both cursed ruins and temples of faith, they'd be rewarded with a special item or a rare skill book. As Feng walked through the passageways of this ruin, he recognized the symbols and carvings on the walls, and soon realized he was in a temple of faith. The murals struck him with a strange familiarity, and just as he began to study them more closely, distant roars thundered through the corridor. He pressed onward, swiftly realizing this was the ancient temple of faith, dedicated to the God of Judgment, the very origin of his Eye of Judgment skill. Meanwhile, deep within the forest, Wang Mang and his party were locked in a fierce battle with a beast. With his shield raised, Wang Mang absorbed the initial wave of attacks, but the instant he dropped his guard, the monster lunged forward, violently sweeping him into the air, his body crashing against a tree and crumpling with critical damage. Seeing their leader fall, the party's archer panicked, yelling at the healer to cast a healing spell. But Feng's sister froze in terror, eyes wide with tears, clutching her staff tightly. She stammered, asking how she was supposed to cast a spell. While everyone was distracted, the monster pounced again. The party's swordsman drew his blade, shouting for her to use her skill, but instead of responding, she dropped to her knees, let go of her staff, and began to cry uncontrollably. The creature showed no mercy, attacking again, and before long, the entire party was wiped out, forcefully returned to Shelltown. Their inglorious return didn't go unnoticed. Plum happened to be nearby, greeting them with a teasing smile, asking why they were back so soon. She added that since Shadow hadn't returned yet, they wouldn't be able to buy any new equipment. The party's archer, his frustration boiling over, pointed a shaking finger at Feng's sister, shouting that he had never seen anyone so stupid. She didn't know how to dodge, didn't know how to use a single skill. Xiao burst into tears, again, overwhelmed and unsure of what to do. Plum stepped in front of her protectively and asked the archer why he was acting so harshly, reminding him that this was her first time playing the game, and it was only natural for a beginner to die once. The archer, his rage undimmed, warned her to move aside, threatening that he'd scold Zhao to death. The swordsman added that they hadn't died just once. They had died times 3 times in under an hour. Plum blinked in disbelief, then gave a carefree laugh and held up the necklace Fang had gifted her, explaining she'd just snagged 2 powerful upgrades directly from Shadow himself. Now that she was this strong, she was confident they wouldn't die with her tagging along. Wang Mang stepped forward, calling for calm. He agreed with Plum. Having her on the team just might turn things around, and, just maybe, they'd meet Shadow again upon their return. Though Xiao was absolutely fuming inside, she donned a mask of gratitude, apologized, and swore she'd try harder. She was disgusted by how quickly they'd blamed her after utterly failing themselves, and if not for their undeniable connection to Shadow, she would have left them behind, without a single second thought. Meanwhile, Feng entered a wide, stone chamber deep within the ancient ruin, and what he saw made him pause, utterly stunned. 2 monstrous figures knelt before him. The system identified them as devout followers of the ancient god of judgment. They were level 10 silver tier monsters, and Feng narrowed his eyes, sensing danger. These weren't just any ordinary mobs. He activated instant shadow, slash and vanished into stealth, then slipped behind one of the kneeling beasts, ready to strike. Despite breaking his stealth and executing a precise backstab, he barely made a dent in their health bars. It was expected, of course. These were silver tier bosses, and combined, their health was even higher than the gold tier boss of the ghost ship he'd defeated earlier. Just as he was about to press his attack, he noticed something strange. The monsters knelt again, now facing him. He hadn't moved, nor made a single sound. Were they responding to the Eye of Judgment? Had they recognized its divine signature? Feng quietly wondered if they could understand him, asking if they knew the path forward. But instead of answering, their heads jerked up, and they let out guttural roars, revealing their truly decomposed features. Whatever sanity or faith they once held was utterly gone. Corruption had twisted them into horrifying creatures of madness, devouring lifespan wherever they could find it. Their glowing eyes locked onto movement behind Feng and the 2 monsters. He whirled and charged down the corridor, and there, blocking the entrance, stood a team of players. The infamous Grey Roses squad, the very group who'd once bought Ice Spike from him. But they realized too late these were silver tier bosses. The players desperately tried to escape, but before they could flee, the monsters attacked. A deadly wave of toxic mist surged through the hall, melting their bodies away, and leaving behind only glowing lifespan orbs. Feng watched on, silently observing, surprised they'd stumbled into the ruin. From the look of their equipment, none of them were prepared to venture deep into a place like this. Deactivating stealth, he stepped forward and picked up the fallen lifespan. As he re-entered the room, the monsters, still corrupted, knelt again. Each had dropped more than 100 days of tradable lifespan. Feng hadn't expected them to be so generous. He searched the room for hidden traps or loot, but after several minutes, it was clear the only reward was the 2 silver bosses. His expression soured with disappointment, so he launched a volley of poison darts, embedding themselves into the creatures' heads. The system rewarded him with 4,000 experience points. He reached level 9, gaining 4 evolution points and 188 days of tradable lifespan. Feng used Greedy Hand, and as the corpses began to fade, a wave of satisfaction washed over him. That epic tier skill was proving to be incredibly valuable. He received 32 evolution points, 1,504 days of tradable lifespan, 4 gold tier items, and 10 silver tier items. Among the loot was a gold tier pendant for assassins, the Pendant of the Faithful. It granted 15 points of agility and a 20% cooldown reduction. Its unique effect allowed him to summon a silver tier devout follower to fight for him, with a cooldown of 6,000 seconds. He clenched his fist in triumph. This pendant was excellent. With a 20% cooldown reduction, his stealth skill dropped from 22 seconds to 19. Poison darts dropped from 4.35 to 3.75 seconds. Instant shadow slash fell from 10 to 8 seconds. Farming lifespan had just become even more efficient. Since all his other gear, it demanded a level higher than 8 to equip. No one else could use this necklace just yet. So, he decided to stash it away, planning to sell it later. Just as he prepared to leave, the ground trembled slightly. Intrigued, he spun around and saw a small stone pillar rising from the floor. His eyes lit up with joy. Having vanquished all the monsters, the hidden mechanism finally sprang to life. Feng cautiously examined the stone pillar, his instincts alert. This was a hidden mechanism, the kind he'd encountered in similar ruins before. The moment he stepped onto the platform, the pillar hummed softly and activated, and the door beneath him slowly began to slide open. Slowly, the platform descended into the darkness, sealing the entrance above. It carried him deep below the temple. Minutes ticked by, and Feng estimated his descent was nearly 400 meters deep into the earth. The air grew colder, and the silence became heavier. This place was ancient, and Feng's senses told him of its inherent danger. Drawing upon his knowledge from his past life, this was a hidden maze beneath the temple, a place filled with traps and peril, but also great rewards. These labyrinths were typical in high-level ruins, and he had explored several before, even though death was a grim fate for the unprepared who dared walk them. The key, of course, was using cannon fodder, others to trigger the deadly traps. With calm confidence, Feng reached into his inventory's depths and retrieved the pendant of the faithful. His stats weren't high enough yet to survive any triggered trap on his own, but this item would grant him a critical edge. With a flick of his hand, he summoned a devout follower, and a corrupted zombie materialized from the mist, bowing before him. Feng pointed down the corridor and issued a single, terse command. "Scout ahead." The follower obeyed, silently shuffling forward into the gloom. Feng crossed his arms and smirked. Exploring the maze, it was far easier with a disposable lackey. Still, danger could strike at any moment, and he wasn't about to take any unnecessary risks. He quickly brought up his interface and spent 11 evolution points to enhance his passive dodge skill. Ghost Shadow Blur ascended from gold to epic tier. The sheer power boost was jaw-dropping. His passive dodge rate rocketed from 15% to 75%. Even better, each dodge now granted total damage immunity. Feeling significantly more secure, he then spent 13 more evolution points to upgrade. Instant Shadow Slash from Diamond to Epic. Its range now soared to a formidable 30 meters. The attack now unleashed 9 rapid slashes instead of 7, and its cooldown plummeted to a mere 8.8 seconds. Plus, damage spiked from 300 to 400 points. Fang's eyes gleamed, reaching. Legendary tier would demand 10 times the points, but the scaling of higher tier skills made it absolutely worth it. The higher the starting tier of a skill, the more efficient its evolution curve became. An epic skill could hit legendary with just 10 points, while a normal tier skill would cost hundreds. With only 11 points left, he decided to evolve Shadow Sneak, his essential starter stealth skill. He spent 8 points, boosting it from silver straight to platinum. The stealth duration extended from 16 to 24 seconds, and its stealth-breaking attack was enhanced by 90%. Its cooldown dropped from 26 seconds to 22, and thanks to his cooldown reduction trait, it now reset in a lightning-fast 16.3 seconds. Still, it wasn't perfect. The stealth-breaking damage was still a bit weak, but it was enough for now. He'd replace it later. As he continued through the treacherous, winding maze, his devout follower triggered a trap, and a massive boulder crashed down from above, instantly crushing the creature. Its body instantly dissolved into light. Fang sighed and decided to wait for the cooldown to summon another. The maze was treacherous, but there was no rush. Each step had to be taken with utmost care. Meanwhile, on the temple's upper floor, a shield-wielding man and a hooded woman cautiously peeked into the room Fang had once stood in. The man then turned to Gray, rose and reported that the monsters were gone. Gray rose, surprised, stepped inside, and noticed the lifespan orbs were also completely missing. Someone had defeated the silver-tier bosses. She correctly guessed, it had to be Shadow. That expert was the only one capable of such a feat, but something else continued to bother her. She distinctly remembered seeing someone. He seemed to be communicating with the monsters earlier. Could it be that Shadow possessed a skill to charm even the most formidable bosses? Such power was both terrifying and utterly mysterious. Meanwhile, back below, Feng summoned another devout follower and pressed onward. For 3 grueling hours, he'd explored the maze, meticulously avoiding traps and mapping its structure. At last, he reached what seemed to be the final door. From past experience, he knew that reaching this point often meant hundreds of players had likely died, acting as bait. He ordered his summon to open the door, but despite straining with all its might, the monster couldn't budge it. Feng frowned and approached, placing a hand on the cold stone. As soon as he did, the door began to shift and open, releasing a wave of smoke that rolled across the floor. Feng wiped the sweat from his brow. This wasn't good. On the other side was a large chamber filled with cracked pillars. In the center stood a chest wrapped in thorn-covered vines. Beside it knelt an NPC, an eerie woman, with the lower half of her face wrapped in bandages. Feng triggered his system to scan her stats, but nothing appeared. No information at all. That had never happened before. The woman began whispering, in a strange language, slowly fading into light. Feng watched in stunned silence. As she vanished, the vines on the chest disintegrated. Though suspicious, he knew this woman had to be connected. To the eye of judgment, the chest began to glow with golden light, an unmistakable sign of rare loot. But Feng remained cautious. Traps and mimics were always a risk. He signaled his summon to open it. The monster obeyed, and as it lifted the lid, a beam of light erupted from the chest. Inside, nestled there, was a skill book, one that pulsed with an undeniable godly aura. This chest held a treasure truly worthy of legends, a skill book tailored perfectly for an assassin. Its title, Bestow of Mercy, was a deceptive name for such a lethal ability. The book shimmered with an epic tear glow, and upon inspection, Feng discovered it granted. It featured both passive and active effects, but the passive effect alone was absurd. It guaranteed a 100% hit correction when aiming at enemy weak points and doubled the damage dealt to them. But even more impressively, it expanded the enemy's weak point hitbox, making precise attacks virtually effortless. But it was the active skill that truly caught Feng's attention. Slit Throat. This devastating technique enhanced Shadow's next attack with a potent debuff. The target would then bleed, for the same amount of damage inflicted, per second for 3 seconds. So, a strike dealing 300 damage would result in a total of 1,200 points of pain, triple the initial impact. Due to Feng's cooldown reduction stats, the skill's 60-second timer was reduced to just 44.4 seconds, though Slit Throat only applied to the first strike of a multi-hit move like Instant Shadow Slash. The potential for burst damage was monstrous, and with the skill being epic tier, evolving it to legendary would cost only 10 points. This alone made the loot haul one of his best yet. Satisfied with the outcome, Feng decided to wrap up his expedition. He owed this opportunity to Plum. Without her, he wouldn't have stumbled upon the hidden maze. It was time to return and repay that favor, or at least share the spoils. Using the system chat, he messaged Plum, asking her to tell Wang Mang to head back to town. He had items to sell them. News of Shadow's return spread quickly. The moment Feng set foot in the starter town, he was surrounded. A massive crowd had gathered, players from all over vying for his attention. Some begged to be added as friends, others offered to become his loyal followers, pledging to support him in battle. Among them was even the chairman of the running, the group from the city, who came in person to invite Feng to join their corporate guild. Players from Firefly Town had traveled all the way just to see him, and with the activation of teleportation, gates connecting towns, Feng realized the world was truly beginning to expand. Now he could directly visit Songfei's Firefly Town. Without hesitation, he activated Shadow, Sneak and vanished, slipping away like a ghost. The crowd erupted in confusion and arguments, each blaming the others for scaring him off. Meanwhile, Feng navigated the alleys, completely unseen, until he arrived at Plum's location. She immediately noticed him and raised her hand, signaling her captain. But it wasn't just Plum who caught his eye. Standing there, smiling with calm confidence, was his sister, Chin Su. Feng froze, questions racing through his mind. How had she ended up in Wang Mang's party? With her involved, his anonymity was at risk. If anyone discovered his real identity, especially now that everyone knew about Shadow, it could be disastrous. In the real world, he was still vulnerable. Even a kitchen knife could end him if someone got too close. He couldn't afford to slip up. Zhao, who had quietly admired him, now blushed. Just by looking at him, she could sense his overwhelming power. Compared to him, their entire party seemed weak, almost pathetic. She began to entertain the idea that if she could just stick close to him, maybe she could reunite with Song Fei in mere days. Fang opened a trade window and explained, through the system, that the equipment he had brought back was perfect for their party's class needs. Moreover, the skill books would significantly boost their combat potential. He set the initial price at 22 days of lifespan. For Wang Mang, expensive, considering the items were silver and gold tier. They clearly couldn't afford it, but Fang, with calm assurance, told them they could pay later. Wang Mang was genuinely touched. His gratitude was sincere, and he promised that if Shadow ever needed help, all he had to do was ask. The party eagerly accepted the deal. Their swordsman donned a golden helmet, practically glowing with excitement, marveling that he was wearing gold-tier gear so soon. Wang Mang equipped his new items as well, gaining a gold-tier skill that instantly tripled his DPS. The emotion was too much. He wept openly. Shadow trusted them so much, enough to let them buy on credit, only deepened their respect. As they celebrated, Wang Mang rechecked the inventory, frowning. Nothing at all for a priest. Zhao looked visibly confused and a bit disappointed. Meanwhile, the archer clenched her fists, simmering with frustration. She'd only managed to leech experience during their time together, and now, it seemed the spoils had passed her by. Xiao stepped forward, a bright smile on her face, and introduced herself to Feng as Wang Mang's party's priest, her voice carrying the hopeful lilt of someone trying to make a good impression. She asked if he happened to have any gear for her. Just then, the system chimed, informing Feng that the player, Little Graceful, wanted to add him as a friend. Xiao's eyes sparkled with excitement, looking at him expectantly, only to be met with Feng's cold, utterly emotionless gaze. Before she could even process what was happening, he vanished, dissolving into thin air like a wisp of shadow, leaving them blinking in confusion. Xiao asked aloud where he'd gone. Wang Mang scratched the back of his head awkwardly, trying to reassure her, guessing that maybe Shadow just didn't have any priest gear this time. Maybe next time, he offered with a shrug. But the archer wasn't so kind. She spoke the harsh truth, pointing out that Shadow had clearly ignored Zhao on purpose, while going out of his way to help Plum. After all, Shadow was the kind of person who came and went like a dragon, in flight, majestic, untouched, and terrifyingly cool. Feng, meanwhile, had already moved on. He knew perfectly well that there was a gold-tier priest staff and a gold-tier priest skillbook in his bag, but giving them to Zhao? That was absolutely out of the question. Not only did he distrust her, she also posed a significant risk to his growing cooperation with Wang Mang's crew, especially with their connections to the in-game authorities. Zhao was a definite liability, and liabilities simply had no place in Feng's plans. What he needed was a real priest, someone powerful, reliable, and loyal. His eyes narrowed with purpose. He needed to find little Yui. Gi Yui, the former manager of the God Slayer Guild in his past life, had held the hidden class of White Avian Priestess. She wasn't just a healer, she came with a mystical white bird, capable of mass heals and buffs, and she had once defeated an epic tier boss, completely solo. Compared to her, Xiao wasn't even worth mentioning, and as fate would have it, Yui was from Firefly Town just like Song Fei. Without wasting another second, Feng activated the teleportation gate, aiming straight for Firefly. He had little time and even less patience. Firefly Town was a sharp contrast to the starter town. It was bustling, stylized and bathed in warm ethereal light. As Feng walked its crowded streets, he caught the tail end of a heated conversation between two players. They were rushing back to the Wailing Valley. A silver-tier boss was below half health, and they couldn't risk someone stealing the kill. One of them cursed it aloud, blaming Song Fei. Apparently that bastard had arrived with a flock of fangirls, making it impossible for anyone else to compete. How does some minor celebrity have so many brain-dead fans? One of them growled. Feng's eyes narrowed. He'd barely arrived and already caught wind of Song Fei. Soon he reached a twisted valley cloaked in smoke and ash, the level 5 zone, known as Wailing Valley. Ember fiends roamed the craggy terrain and shackled, wailed in chains of fire from a hidden vantage point. Feng saw the battle firsthand. A two-headed beast, wreathed in flames, was under siege by dozens of players, including a few who had abandoned the boss entirely to fight each other. It was chaos. Then Feng spotted him. Among the crowd was the infamous bastard himself, surrounded by a harem-like team of mages. Two players stood before him, blades, faces contorted with rage. One accused Song of stealing his lifespan with a dirty sneak attack. The other, a tank with a great shield, taunted, asking, mockingly, if Song thought hiding behind his girls would truly save him. He then boasted about his rare, god-tier anti-aging skill. But before he could even move, one of Song's mage girls smashed his skull in with her staff, silencing him permanently. Feng stared, remembering all too well the truth behind Song Fei's heaven-defying mage god title from their previous life. Song had convinced hordes of fans to pick the mage class under the guise of unity, then stripped them of gear, of skills, and of hope, all to strengthen himself. But a party full of mages couldn't survive on its own, so his cult-like followers adapted. Some maxed intelligence to become glass cannons, others dumped points into agility, becoming disruptors. A few focused on health to act as meat shields, while others chose strength, turning into staff-wielding battle mages. It had worked for a while. In the early game, Song Fei's party was untouchable, stealing lifespan from player after player. But Feng knew exactly how this played out. One by one, most of Song's fangirls would die. With a theatrical flourish, Song pointed dramatically at the towering silver-tier boss and let out a melodramatic sigh, claiming his heart ached. Watching how hard his precious fans were working, he hoped the monster would die soon, he said, so everyone could rest and the world could be full of love and free from violence. As if on cue, a wide-eyed girl from his entourage stepped forward, utterly moved by his supposed compassion. One of Song's loyalists nodded fervently, agreeing that the one suffering most was their beloved Song. According to her, he was working so hard he shouldn't have to bear it any longer. With a trembling hand, she pointed at the monster, vowing to kill it to protect him. Rallying to the cause, Song's fangirls launched their attacks. Spells flew through the air like fireworks, fueled by blind devotion. They had sworn to follow him to the ends of the world, willing to crown him king, even if it meant certain death. The twin-headed boss roared, unleashing a blazing stream of fire right at Song. But before it could reach him, one of the girls bravely dove into its path. Her body was instantly consumed by flames, as she collapsed at his feet, fading into particles. Song gently took her hand, his eyes filled with a staged sorrow. Meanwhile, the girl, barely conscious, vowed through tears to do anything for him. A chubby girl gripped her staff tightly, rallying the others. If we kill this ugly monster, then brother, Song will rise to first place in the rankings. He has to surpass Shadow. That declaration sent the rest into a frenzy, screaming war cries and chanting Song's name. They cast barrage after barrage of powerful spells. Thunderbolts, flame pillars, light spears, driving the boss to its absolute limit. Song watched eagerly. This was it. Once the boss fell, he'd hit level 8. Shadow, who'd been stuck at level 9 for so long, would finally be left behind. Song's smug smile widened. He didn't know how Shadow had killed a gold tier boss so early. Probably a bug, but soon, none of that would matter. He was about to become the top-ranked player in the game. But just as the final blow seemed near, a hand cloaked in shadows materialized behind Song and clamped over his mouth. His eyes widened in horror. In an instant, Feng decapitated him. His blade flashed again. Instant shadow. Slash, tearing Song's body into bloody chunks. Before his fans could even scream, Feng blurred into motion, slicing through their ranks and cutting through the boss in the same motion. Blood sprayed in arcs. In mere seconds, the boss and every member of Song's party lay in pieces. The system notification rang out. Silver tier boss defeated. You have earned 150 experience points. The battlefield went dead silent. The colossal twin-headed monster crumbled, lifeless. Its massive form disintegrated into glowing orbs of lifespan. Feng. He stood alone, silent, as his stealth skill deactivated. Gasps of awe filled the air. Many had watched the entire spectacle in awe. A single, devastating attack dealt thousands of damage points, while their combined magic had barely even chipped away at the boss with meager 100-point spells. Shadow had obliterated it and them in a single blink. Whispers of disbelief quickly erupted into thunderous cheers. Some had loathed Song Fei. Others had envied him, but every single one of them was smart enough to grasp one chilling truth. Crossing Shadow was suicide. They instinctively backed away, giving him ample space, murmuring their reluctant thanks for ridding them of the bastard. In truth, they were utterly terrified. In Feng's past life, however, he wouldn't have hesitated to mercilessly kill them too. But now, he simply turned his back and calmly walked away. Meanwhile, back in bustling Firefly Town, Song respawned. In a furious burst of pixels, the system coldly announced, "You were killed by Shadow. You have lost 1,106 days of tradable lifespan, and 18 years, 113 days of non-tradable lifespan." Panic seized Song. Shadow was here. Of all the towns in Janhai City, why this one? Why now? His fangirls reappeared one by one, looking confused and frightened. The chubby girl blinked at Song, utterly stunned he had died. Another was furious, not understanding why Shadow would attack them during such a crucial moment. A third ranted that Shadow must have just wanted to steal the kill, that he was cruel and evil for striking, while Song was completely distracted. Just then, an archer nervously approached Song. She admitted she had the skill, Eagle Eye, which could detect invisible players. She humbly asked if she could join his team. Song's rabid fans immediately jeered, yelling that Song only accepted mages into his party. She'd slow them down. She wasn't worthy. But Song, ever the manipulative, the showman, stretched out his arms and gently smiled. He said it didn't matter that she was an archer. What mattered was the strength of her emotions. He took her hand and promised her a place in his family. Together, he claimed, they would strive to grow, and one day exact their revenge on the sinister Shadow, all in the name of pure, unadulterated love. With Song so near, the archer girl's cheeks flushed crimson. Her cheeks burned with warmth, tears of pure joy streamed freely down her face. It felt as though being accepted into his family had finally fulfilled a lifelong dream. Then, another girl, a dark-robed assassin, stepped dramatically from the shadows. Her voice, brimming with venom, declared that she, too, could become invisible, and that she would make Shadow pay for what he'd done to their beloved leader. A mage then chimed in, her eyes gleaming with righteous fury, proudly announcing she had just mastered a new area of effect spell, capable of freezing Shadow right in his tracks. Song, ever the showman, stretched his arms wide, a benevolent smile on his face, and proclaiming that any girl who believed in love was welcome in his family. His words triggered another overwhelming wave of sobs. The girls openly wept with joy, utterly overwhelmed by his kindness and charisma. Swearing eternal loyalty, they loudly cursed Shadow's name, branding him a spineless coward with no honor for attacking Song by surprise. They swore they would track him down and force him to kneel before Song to truly learn the consequences of crossing their shining beacon of justice. Two nearby players watched the bizarre scene unfold with a mix of amusement and disbelief. Though they didn't know precisely what had happened, they knew one thing for sure. Someone had utterly wiped out Song and his squad, and it had been absolutely glorious. With so many mage girls defending him now, the only one who could have pulled it off was Shadow. They quietly agreed that Shadow was simply on another level, while privately thinking that Song's fanatics were completely out of their minds. Meanwhile, Song wore a satisfied grin. With so many people watching, once he finally defeated Shadow, the world would finally understand that strength meant nothing without true support. According to him, Shadow was just a soft-hearted loner, an assassin, who had dared to challenge a noble mage like himself. He couldn't wait to utterly humiliate him. Unbothered by any of this, Feng looted the battlefield with surgical precision. Using Greedy Hand, he snatched up 16 evolution points, plus an impressive 217 days of tradable lifespan, along with 6 silver-tier items and 1 glorious golden-tier piece of loot. Without a moment's hesitation, he poured 10 evolution points into upgrading Graceful Liberation. The skill surged from epic to legendary. Its passive effect, weak point attack correction, doubled from 100% to a staggering 200%, meaning his attacks were now twice as likely to pinpoint vital spots. The multiplier for weak point damage also drastically doubled, and the active effect, Throat Slit, now dealt a whopping 150% damage per second for 3 seconds, instead of the previous 100%, with its cooldown slashed from 30 to just 18.5 seconds. With a terrifying 200% weak point correction, even half of an enemy's entire body could now effectively count as a weak point, possibly even triggering weak point effects with Shadow. However, Feng knew that taking a skill from legendary to mythical required 100 times more evolution points. Just reaching mythical with Graceful Liberation would need 200 points. That meant the cost for evolving Greedy Hand would be absolutely massive, 210 for legendary, and a staggering 340 for mythical. With 9 points still remaining, he chose to upgrade Backstab Enhancement. Spending 8 points, it soared from gold to platinum, and its passive damage bonus dramatically increased from 30% to 40%. All in all, between the silver tier, boss and the slaughtered fanatics, he had gained over 140 days of valuable, tradable lifespan. With his objective finally complete, Feng decided it was time to make his exit. But as he turned to leave, a girl suddenly launched a surprise attack. Her blade came fast, but Feng, silent, still, and precise, dodged without effort. She tried again, but he evaded every strike like a phantom, each step a silent, deadly refusal. Stunned, she activated stealth and vanished. From atop a nearby cliff, Song's fangirls appeared once again, their eyes burned with rage. They had found him, and they had come to exact revenge for Song. The mages in Song's party raised their glowing staffs, their fury burning in their eyes, while the archer, newly recruited and still flushed from earlier praise, she drew her bow, aiming at the empty air where Feng had just vanished. Their beloved Song had been wronged, and they were absolutely determined to avenge him. When Feng disappeared once again, melting seamlessly into the shadows, the archer activated her signature skill, Eagle Eye. Her arrow transformed into a spectral eagle that soared high, scanning the terrain before spectacularly exploding mid-air, scattering ethereal feathers like shimmering, magical rain. As the feathers gently floated down, one landed directly on the assassin girl from their own party, instantly breaking her stealth and revealing her position. The chubby mage's eyes lit up with pure glee as she clenched her fists, practically vibrating with excitement. Believing they had caught King Feng, without hesitation, she ordered the others to unleash absolutely everything they had. Spells rained from the heavens, fire, lightning, ice, slamming into the poor assassin, who screamed that she wasn't the enemy. But it was too late. The furious explosions consumed her, erasing her very existence, in a brilliant, devastating burst of magical fire. Instead of remorse, the chubby girl turned absolutely furious, accusing the now-dead assassin of lacking true devotion. She claimed it was divine punishment, proof that anyone who wasn't a mage couldn't possibly love Song sincerely. With brutal detachment, she ordered the archer to fire another eagle and find the real target. But before that skill could be activated again, Feng rang the ghost fire bell. Its eerie chime unleashed the active effect. Soul attack, freezing all enemies within 100 meters for 3 terrifying seconds. A shimmering aura wrapped around Song's party as their bodies locked up, confusion dawning just before the brutal slaughter began. Like a bolt of thunder, Feng emerged from invisibility, his blade slashing through bodies with ruthless precision. They had no time to scream, no chance to resist. One by one, they collapsed, their lifespans bursting from their corpses, like vapor trails of doomed devotion. Hiding around the corner, Song peeked out and froze at the sight of the carnage. Confused, he couldn't understand what had happened. He doubted it was Shadow. Surely an attack that powerful would have revealed him. But then came the voice, cold, inevitable. King Fang, appearing before him, radiating arrogance and an eerie silence. Fang made his intentions unmistakably clear. Song's end was now. Panicked, Song frantically activated a magic shield. A shimmering barrier instantly wrapped around him like protective armor. But Fang, utterly unfazed, calmly launched a poison dart. It sliced through the so-called shield as if it were mere paper, then struck Song directly in the forehead. The scream that erupted was shrill, desperate, and chillingly loud. And then, silence. As Song abruptly collapsed, his body unraveled, dissolving into countless glowing orbs of lifespan. As the very last traces of Song completely vanished, Fang calmly deactivated his stealth ability. He observed the swirling orbs and instantly realized that Song that had originally held over 2,000 days of tradable lifespan. But none of his fanatical followers had any themselves, which confused him. He quickly pieced it together. They had donated all their lifespan to him. It was utterly absurd and deeply disturbing. The blind loyalty of people who still believed this godforsaken game was just a game. Now, all that tradable lifespan, hundreds of years worth, would vanish, absorbed into the bellies of nearby monsters. Back in Firefly Town, Song and his fans respawned. Furious, rage, twisted Song's features as he glared at the system message, confirming his devastating loss. More than 1,500 days of tradable lifespan were gone, leaving him with barely 500. With a furious scowl, he turned to the archer and demanded to know why she hadn't detected King Fang. Nervously, she explained that she had used Eagle Eye, but the only presence it revealed was their own assassin. Girl, the chubby mage, frowning, noted that her attribute panel did show a stealth level, but perhaps Shadow's was higher than they'd accounted for. The archer admitted that her detection skill only worked on stealth levels of 1 or below. If Shadow's stealth was higher, he would remain completely invisible to her. Song gritted his teeth, utterly frustrated. Shadow had appeared, struck, and vanished again like a phantom. There was absolutely no defense against that. Touching his face, Song muttered to himself, insisting that he hadn't done anything to offend Shadow. Surely, now that he'd already stolen the boss kill, he had no reason to target him again. But then a truly troubling thought came to him. What if Shadow? He was simply green with envy over his unmatched beauty. Perhaps he was returning fueled purely by jealousy. They rallied to protect their cherished leader. Song's fans, once again, brandished their weapons. They resolved to level up in a safer location, a place where Shadow would never track them down. Wherever Song went, his devoted fans vowed to follow. Their devotion was as blind as it was utterly fanatical. Meanwhile, Feng also made his way back to Firefly Town after a quick but fruitless search for their traces. Finding nothing, he swiftly deactivated his stealth and approached a player idly loitering nearby. The moment he recognized Shadow, the man's face instantly blanched with terror. Trembling, he pointed a shaky finger toward the outskirts, revealing that Song and his fiercely loyal followers had indeed headed in that direction. Then, mustering a bit of courage, the man made a truly desperate request. He pleaded with Feng to kill Song, and if possible, to spare his girlfriend, a female hunter known as One Flying Treasure Cat. Upon hearing this, Feng tilted his head slightly and coolly advised the man to find another girlfriend instead. Realizing she was the hunter capable of detecting stealth, without waiting for any further excuses, he vanished once more into the shifting shadows, leaving the man frantically pleading into the empty air, insisting he had worked tirelessly to win her over. Even though Feng now knew the general direction they had headed, the sheer vastness of the area made tracking them both difficult and incredibly time-consuming. Just as he was contemplating his next move, the desperate man cupped his hands around his mouth and loudly began calling out for Shadow. In hopes of somehow helping him, Feng ignored him. His priority was finding someone who could track, far better than any panicked bystander. At that moment, a woman casually strolled past him. Catching his attention, he blinked momentarily, surprised. This girl was none other than Guo Yue. Quickly deactivating his stealth, Feng called out to her with an incredibly cheerful tone, complimenting her beauty, and then asking if she could lend him a hand. Guo Yue, recognizing Shadow, couldn't hide her utter shock. Smiling mischievously, Feng pulled out a dazzling golden grade, a staff from his inventory, dangling it temptingly before her. He mentioned that he'd heard her class could pinpoint targets across a vast area. If she could find Song, he promised, he'd sell her the staff at an absolute steal. Yui's eyes sparkled with excitement as she instinctively opened her system window. Curiosity gleamed in her gaze as she questioned how he knew about her tracking abilities. She'd never told anyone. Feng simply grinned, asking if she wanted the staff or not. Yui immediately blurted, "Yes," though her voice faltered, unsure if she could possibly afford such a treasure. Noticing her hesitation, Feng asked with feigned innocence if she at least had 500 days of tradable lifespan. He then teased her, revealing the staff's original price should have been around 700 or 800 days. Checking her system window, Yui realized she did indeed have around 700 days. Relieved, she quickly agreed to the deal. A system window popped up, confirming the successful transaction. As she took the staff, her hands trembled slightly, and she even began drooling from sheer joy. Feng chuckled, gently tapping her cheek to snap her out of it, reminding her to hurry. Blushing furiously, Yui nodded, gripping her new staff tightly. Focusing her magic, Yui began to concentrate. Even though it was their first meeting, Feng gave her an odd sense of familiarity that she couldn't quite explain. As her owl familiar fluttered around her, she asked playfully if Feng wasn't afraid she might take the weapon and run off without helping. With a serene smile, Feng asked her, "Don't you hate Song?" Hearing this, Yui's eyes widened. How did he know? She stared at him, utterly confused. Was he a friend from real life? His voice didn't match anyone she remembered. Still smiling, Feng simply asked her to guess. But Yui, feeling lazy, shrugged it off and raised her hand, commanding her owl to scout ahead. Moments later, her expression changed. Her owl circled over the distant canyons, and through its eyes she spotted them. Song and his army of love-struck fans, clustered together like lost sheep in the wastelands. At last, Yui's white owl pinpointed Song's location deep within the rocky canyon paths. She swiftly relayed the coordinates to Shadow, but she warned him, her voice laced with concern, that Song and his group might relocate again before he could arrive. The owl was fast, but tracking them for too long would exhaust it. Shadow, focused and swift, reassured her with a calm, steady voice. It would only take a few seconds. Without another word, Feng darted off, moving with blinding speed, leaping across massive stone pillars, and tearing through the jagged terrain. But as he advanced, the owl suddenly stopped. That immediately caught his attention. Something was interfering with the tracking. Curious, he halted and observed a nearby tree, marked with a strange symbol. Deciding to investigate, he called Yui again, and she redirected the owl to search the surroundings. The owl soon found two more trees, etched with identical markings. One 100 meters ahead, another 100 meters to the left. Shadow approached each tree, brushing his fingers over the bark with caution. As soon as all three symbols received a touch of lifespan energy, a pulse of light surged between them. The ground at their center began to glow, and moments later, an emerald-grade treasure chest materialized in a radiant golden aura. Feng froze in awe, a divine blessing. Right here in a starter zone like Firefly Town, he could hardly believe it. These blessings, from ancient gods, were rare and unpredictable, able to appear anywhere in the Forsaken Lands. Some summoned monsters, some released plagues of creatures, and others, like this one, held unimaginable treasures. Yui, who was still observing, who, through her owl, was just as stunned. That emerald chest was worth at least 1,000 days of tradable lifespan, over 10 million real-world credits. Shadow was impressed by her quick math. In his past life, lifespan sold for 10,000 per year at launch, but by day 2, the value had skyrocketed to 50,000. Yui, still curious, began. recording the symbols for future reference. A clever glint danced in her eye. Who knew what secrets her tracking class might unearth? Meanwhile, Shadow opened the mysterious chest. Inside, a skill book pulsed with an ominous, malevolent glow. It was the Curse of the Blossoms, and the Emerald Tier ability came with it. Cursed flowers could bloom from an enemy's corpse, draining their entire tradable lifespan to 0. Astonishingly, the skill had absolutely no cooldown. Its only requirement? Use it within 15 seconds of the target's death. Fang instantly recognized this wicked spell from his past life. With this, every single kill became a golden opportunity. If he struck down Song, again, and guarded his corpse for just moments, he could rob him of times, everything asterisk. A dark, predatory smile slowly spread across his face. This time, Song wouldn't just die, he'd be times completely emptied asterisk. As Shadow sprinted toward his prey, the scene dramatically shifted. In a distant, rugged canyon, Song's devoted fangirls were battling a monstrous boss, pouring incredible damage into the fearsome beast. Meanwhile, their idol waited strategically in the back for the final, glory-stealing hit. Song, utterly smug, was confident Shadow wouldn't follow them all the way out here. After all, Shadow had already stolen a silver-tier boss and utterly humiliated him twice. Surely, that times had times to be enough. Right? Oh, but he was so wrong. Just as the boss visibly weakened, the chubby girl pointed excitedly to another ridge where a separate party was also battling. Another boss. Song, with the grace of a venomous serpent, manipulated his devoted fans yet again. He slyly claimed the rival group was a fan, guild of another idol, actively trying to outshine times him, asterisk. The girl's expressions twisted into a furious rage. No one would ever surpass their beloved Song. Without a moment's hesitation, they descended upon the utterly unsuspecting group. The enemy team, believing they'd gained crucial allies, warmly welcomed them. But before words of peace could even leave their lips, the chubby mage brought her staff down with brutal, devastating force, flattening the leader in one swift strike. The rest of the team stared in utter disbelief, as Song's fangirls turned on them like rabid wild animals, mumbling incoherently about idols and twisted destiny. One bewildered girl tried to question what was happening, but was instantly silenced by a crushing wave of magic. Then, in a truly bizarre flourish, the fanatics began reciting twisted, deranged poetry, proclaiming Song's glorious arrival. With the enemy party utterly annihilated, the girls stepped aside as their golden prince stepped forward to land the final blow on the boss. Song, still feigning innocence, thanked them all with feigned sincerity, spinning lies about nearly being ambushed and praising their heroism. His words made them blush and giggle. They were completely lost in his delusion. But the show was finally over. As the camera pulled back, alone, Shadow emerged at the edge of the canyon. Song sensed something was wrong. A chill ran down his spine. He turned too late. Fang's blade cleaved through the air like a flash of divine judgment. Instant slash. Song's head flew clean off, and his body collapsed. But this time, Shadow didn't walk away. He knelt beside the corpse and invoked Curse of the Blossoms. A massive red flower sprouted from Song's chest, its petals pulsing as they drank the tradable lifespan from the brat's body. The fangirls stared, dumbfounded, unable to comprehend what they were seeing. As the scene shifted, Song reappeared at the portal of Firefly Town, dazed and frustrated, still unable to comprehend why Shadow kept targeting him so relentlessly. In his twisted rationale, he convinced himself that it had to be jealousy. Perhaps Shadow was bitter over the crowd of fangirls constantly surrounding him, or maybe one of those girls was someone Shadow liked. The brat thought the boys' constant visits to Firefly Town were no coincidence, and figured it was all some long-winded ploy for revenge. But while he stood mired in his overinflated theories, a sudden system notification sliced through his thoughts, warning him that his tradable lifespan was decreasing at a constant rate, and had already plummeted drastically in just a few seconds following his latest death. Confusion gave way to panic as Song stared at the notification, unable to understand what was happening until he speculated this might be some kind of penalty for dying way too often. But before he could even process the chaos in his mind, the rest of his devoted fan club began pouring into the portal as well. The chubby mage, among them, breathlessly informed Song about what they'd witnessed. A sinister, blood-red flower had bloomed right over his corpse, clearly leaching something vital from his body. It didn't take long for Song to connect the dots. The cursed flower, the rapidly draining lifespan. It was all the ruthless work of Shadow, who had unleashed a terrifying new skill. Realization dawned on him with the crushing weight of a hammer, and the brat snapped. commanding his followers to log off immediately. If they continued dying under Shadow's hand, their tradable lifespan would plummet to 0, and that meant true death. Still playing the charismatic puppet master, he called them his family, as he told them he'd head into reality to buy more time, and later, return with gear purchased using their accumulated lifespan. The girls, still enchanted by their idol, accepted the idea wholeheartedly, each one dreaming of a triumphant comeback where they'd confront Shadow. With overwhelming power, even as Song's digital presence vanished from the game, his face twisted in bitter frustration. He refused to accept this as defeat after grinding for 2.5 years to build his current fame and resources. He couldn't believe some nameless nobody could threaten it all. In his world, money crushed everything. He just needed time. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, blood-red blossoms bloomed across the ground, each one rooted to a corpse, silently, siphoning the tradable lifespan out of Song's fanatics. Due to Shadow's ruthless spree, his Slayer tier had risen to level 4, causing a brutal 96.8% loss of tradable lifespan upon death. But Shadow didn't care. He estimated this ambush had earned him another 1,000 days of life, a reward rightfully stolen from Song, Faye and his delusional crew, who had clearly slain plenty of monsters before they became fertilizer themselves. But this feast was short-lived. The flowers gradually faded, and the flow of energy ceased. Shadow then realized that the players had all logged off to escape the effect. Above him, the white owl continued to circle silently. Yui had seen everything, and even she was shaken by the overwhelming display of power. To witness the true might of a top-rank player was something else entirely. When Shadow turned toward her and asked whether Song had truly logged off, the girl confirmed it with a nod, explaining that the entire group had vanished to buy time. Shadow calmly instructed her to keep watching, and to notify him the moment Song dared to return. When she asked if her task was done, Shadow told her to wait a little longer. He just acquired a golden tier priest class skill, Sword of Divine Judgment, and her eyes practically lit up at the mention. She wanted it badly. Seeing this, Shadow offered to trade it to her for 500 days of lifespan, but added that he was willing to sell it at half the price if she accepted one condition. At first, the girl narrowed her eyes and snapped that she wasn't about to sell her body, which made even Shadow flinch, as he quickly clarified that she was really overthinking. All he wanted was for her to join his team as their long-term healer. Her expression relaxed, and with a light laugh, she agreed almost immediately, though she warned him that if the team turned out to be a bunch of useless idiots, she'd personally blame him. Shadow assured her they were far from shabby, and decided to contact them right away. The perspective then shifted to another part of the Forsaken Lands, where Wang Mang stood triumphantly over the twitching corpse of a poisonous monster, finally having slain the thing. Grinning in celebration over the XP gain, he called out to Zhao, requesting a heal and an antidote, but the girl remained frozen and flustered, still completely unsure of what to do next. Wang tried to explain once more that Zhao's priest class came with a detoxification skill, but before she could even listen properly, she fired it off at a tree, instead of her poisoned teammate. Time slipped through their fingers, and before another word could be said, Wang collapsed onto the ground and died from the lingering venom his kill rendered meaningless. The rest of the team stood there in stunned silence, anger slowly boiling beneath the surface. Each of them staring at Feng's little sister with disbelief. They weren't sure what to do with someone so catastrophically unhelpful. Later, as they stood by the teleportation stone, the team leader grimaced. He knew he had no choice but to replace the healer, but every capable hidden class priest had long since been recruited. Still, they couldn't go on like this. Meanwhile, Zhao remained utterly unaware of her own incompetence, floating in delusions of grandeur as she convinced herself she must be some kind of chosen one, a goddess of this new world. She was convinced that leveling to 4 with no effort was proof that the game was simple and her greatness inevitable. Soon, she thought, she'd be reunited with her glorious brother Song. But just then, Shadow's voice reached Wang Mang with news that made his pulse quicken. A hidden class healer, a white bird priest, had agreed to join them. She was apparently strong in other roles too. It was the break the team needed, and the leader didn't hesitate for a second, urging Shadow to send her location. Shadow mentioned she was currently in Firefly Town, and though the area wasn't good for grinding, it was better to meet up and move forward as a unit. Wang nodded, and prepared to head over. But first he had to deal with the problem child. He turned to Zhao and gently explained that their team needed to relocate to a higher-level zone, due to the dense population in Shelltown. He claimed with well-practiced tact that her level was simply too low to survive there. But before she could say anything, the entire party sprinted off without her. whooping in relief, now that they were finally free from the burden of a healer who couldn't even heal. Zhao, however, remained unfazed. She saw their departure as a true blessing in disguise. Clearly, they were too weak to ever be worthy of her. Now, she would track down Shadow, herself, and force him to carry her forward. Meanwhile, Wang Meng arrived in Firefly Town, meeting both Shadow and Yu. The moment he spotted them, he immediately handed over the tradable lifespan he'd earned from their recent monster battle. He was eager to settle his debt and move forward. Even with their progress, he was beginning to realize just how tough survival in this game truly was. As they discussed their plans, Wang mentioned someone new, a captain named Anyu. The name froze Shadow in place, his mind racing. That name? It couldn't just be a coincidence. And just like that, the girl arrived, waving cheerfully at them. Anyu's presence immediately drew both men's eyes. Shadow couldn't believe what he was seeing. The stunning young woman in front of him was, indeed, that Anyu, codenamed Justice Execution, the only player in the entire game to wield the hidden class of Dragon Swordsman. In his past life, she had ranked among the global top 20, and had served as one of the key figures behind the official forces of the country, a national pillar revered and feared in equal measure. And now, she was here early, radiant and blushing as she greeted Shadow, with undeniable admiration in her eyes. She introduced herself warmly, confessing she'd always looked up to him. She even joked that he might be a time traveler or a reincarnated hero, given the insane pace of his growth. Shadow listened quietly, letting the memories of his previous life fill in the blanks. Back then, he had met her much later, under different, darker circumstances. She hadn't been on the same team as Wang, which made this unexpected meeting all the more shocking. She already possessed a significant amount of tradable lifespan, likely accumulated on behalf of the government factions, and as a dragon swordsman, a class famous for its incredible resilience, she was the perfect vessel to wield that kind of power. It was a shrewd, calculated move by the officials, and Shadow respected her for that. Anyu, for her part, didn't mince words. She made it clear that if Shadow had any gear he was willing to part with, she and her people would buy it all. She reminded him, sweetly yet firmly, that she carried the burden of a city's hope on her shoulders. Shadow had no reason to eliminate her, and they both knew it. He agreed easily, stating he wasn't so short-sighted enough to ruin such a mutually beneficial opportunity. A partnership like this could lead to immense gains, on both sides. Deep down, he knew that Anyu might seem cheerful and harmless on the surface, but her mind was sharp and her strategies thunderous. Those who underestimated her quickly learned why she was so feared.